Welcome into an emergency edition of the Gurus podcast, December 13th. Mike Testa, Xavier Aguiar. And today is probably the most impactful NFL day I can remember, maybe since Tom Brady retiring, which was the offseason. So there's that. As far as an actual Sunday goes, this is maybe unprecedented. There is so much that happened today that can literally change the trajectory of the entire league. But we're going to start in the most obvious place. Patrick Mahomes tearing his ACL late in today's game against the Chargers. The Chiefs were pretty much eliminated from the playoffs anyway. They really didn't have much of a chance, but they were down 3 late against the Chargers. It looked like they were going to at least force overtime, maybe get a little frisky and win the game. But regardless, Mahomes goes down. Gardner Minshew can't do anything. So the Chiefs are unceremoniously exited from the playoff picture, and Mahomes goes down. So, Mike, I want to hear your thoughts immediately. We were both watching this live. Take me through what you were thinking immediately when you saw him grabbing his knee, and it was very apparent that this was more than just a little injury.
My immediate impact went from, oh my God, the Chiefs season is over, to, oh my God, Mahomes season is over. And there was like a whirlwind of emotion that happened at once, because I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I was immediately thinking the worst, because sometimes you do this with athletes, you think the worst immediately, and then you see him walking off. And I think you said it in the group chat, and I think I said it too. It's like, okay, at least he's walking off. Could it be hyperextension, something that, I mean, it'd still be weeks, but it's like, okay, what's like not the worst case scenario for this? But it looks pretty bad initially. Those non-contact ones are never good, and you could see the knee, buckle there, and it was not a good look. I was shocked. I was devastated because it is for the sport. Because again, we're not Chiefs fans. Again, I'm a Dolphins fan. You're a Patriot fan. We have no bias towards liking the Chiefs by any stretch of imagination. But for the sport, Mahomes being down and being injured severely is not good. It's not good. We want our stars playing. We say it all the time in the NBA. It's like when the superstars are playing and they're healthy, it's better for the sport. So when Mahomes is down, and I got to see Gardner Minshew, warming up, I was like, oh, this is first of all, the air in the crowd was dead. I mean, you heard it. When Mahomes went down, it wasn't like by the way, the game was still very much in reach. They're down 3, they're across midfield, but that became secondary. Like when Gardner Minshew started warming up, you could hear a pin drop in Arrowhead Field, in Arrowhead Stadium, which is of course notoriously a very loud stadium, but it was a disaster. And for the Chiefs' playoff hopes, which are obviously eliminated now, they are officially eliminated. Their only path really was to beat the Chargers. That was their only path. Beating the Chargers, who you had playing today against them, and then you need the Chargers to lose out, coupled with winning out. And I do believe that if Mahomes stays in the game, they probably get it overtime. It was kind of following the same script of that Colts game a few weeks before, where it's like they get the game in overtime and you never know what happens. That was like the only one-score game they actually won this year. But all these Chiefs games have looked similar, but with Mahomes going down, that just takes the entire season as a whole as secondary. It's like, okay, the Chiefs had a rough year, but this Mahomes injury is now the frontline newspaper. This is what you're looking at as a headliner. And it just dampens the mood in what was already a terrible season for the Chiefs.
I want to start here because there's some athletes that when they go down, you just expect them to immediately pop up. In my life, this was Jason Tatum for a while. He would take some gnarly falls and he would just get back up, and it was always worrisome, but he just never really missed time. And Mahomes was very similar to that. And just like Tatum did last year in the playoffs on seemingly kind of a nothing play, that's when all of a sudden he gets hurt. And today, it wasn't like I've seen Mahomes look like he was going to get hurt far more than the play he actually got hurt on today. And for that to be the one where he tears his ACL, that was stunning to me.
Jarring.
Because he's taken some licks, especially this year with the offensive line being a little bit shaky. So there's some athletes like Anthony Davis, you just never know when they fall down. It's like 50-50 if he's really hurt or not.
Yeah.
Mahomes, it felt like no matter how bad it looked, he would just pop right back up. And this is the one that takes them out. So it goes without saying, Kansas City's season, they have nothing to play for anymore. It's going to be the Minshew show for the next few weeks. This is where it gets interesting because this injury happens late in December. This is anywhere from a 9 to 12 month injury. There is a chance that Mahomes misses all of next year, which is something you immediately have to talk about when an injury happens like this in December. So let's just say, best case scenario, he's available around October, okay? And this is where I want to transition us here. Where do you go if you're Kansas City? Because I think at this point, you don't want to waste any prime Mahomes years because it feels like this year was a wasted year. So next year, you're going to start behind the 8 ball. At best, you'll probably have 2 months without your star quarterback. And I don't think Gardner Minshew is capable of kind of holding down the ship for 2 months. Mahomes didn't seem capable of holding down the ship 2 months this year because of how terrible the roster was, which we talked about quite a bit on our last podcast. So
The
if
ship was
you were
already
Brent
sinking.
Veach
Yeah, the ship was
and
already
you
sinking.
were the brain trust in Kansas City, what would you do at the quarterback position at the start of next year? Would you use that as kind of a rebuilding year? Would you kind of hold Mahomes out because you know you're probably without him for anywhere from, we'll call it 8 to 12 games next year? So you could be in the dumps already. Or do you actually try to compete for a little while, just remain around 500 and give Mahomes a chance when he comes back to at least make a push in the playoffs and in the, try to get to another Super Bowl? Because if Mahomes is your quarterback, you have a hell of a chance to make the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I think this is the gap year. This is the year where they need to be bad. They're not going to win any. I think we both agree. Now they do play Tennessee and Las Vegas, but they're going to finish with around 7 wins. They have 6 right now. Maybe they win one more. Maybe they win 2 more. I don't know, but they're going to be picking in the top 14. Let's just say. So yeah, I don't think, but I think next year you have to go for it. I mean, you have to assume that Mahomes will make a full recovery. He's gotten back from injuries quicker than most have. He's had knee injuries in the past. He's had high ankle sprains. He's had knee injuries. And he's come back from them. But yeah, this surgery and we just saw Daniel Jones get injured last week. So we talk about December injuries to quarterbacks. Those are all guys like, okay, well, they be back for the start of next season. That's all now in jeopardy when you get injured this late in the season.
And his was an Achilles, which tends to be worse. We'll see, especially with the NBA Achilles thing going on. It seems like guys are recovering from that a little bit faster.
Yeah.
ACL is kind of all over the place. Some guys, it seems like it affects more than others. I think the problem with Mahomes, Mike, is if he does miss all of next year, which has to be on the table, he would be around 32 when he comes back, and that'll be part of his legacy conversation later. But I understand quarterbacks are playing longer than ever, but he definitely has some miles on him because if you think about it, he's playing deeper into every year. There's an extra game now every year with the schedule, right? So not only is he playing more games in the postseason, he's playing an extra game every year. He's been relatively healthy for the bulk of his career. So he has a lot of miles on him at this point. And then you add this injury into it, he's not going to be a fresh 31 or 32, depending on when he comes back. So I'm not saying he's at the end. I'm not suggesting that whatsoever. But I think the hill, whether it's just a slight dip in play, I think that has to be on the table because of the way he plays as well. This isn't Brady, who is a master at avoiding contact towards the end of his years and not really a runner. Mahomes takes a lot of beating because of how great of a scrambler he is, how good of a runner he is. That adds to the toll as well. So I think that has to be considered here when we're talking about what Kansas City does next season in particular.
Well, that's why I don't think it's a punt year. I think that you can bring in.
You think they have to at least kind of be in the middle of the pack?
Yes, you're going to bring in a quarterback next year. It's not like a couple years ago they brought in Carson Wentz. You're going to bring in, I think, a legit quarterback in case Mahomes is missing time. Like you just have to. You're not at a point right now where you can just
So what do you mean by that? So I'm just going to throw some random names at you.
Throw some names out.
Are you talking about someone of like Marcus Mariota's level, where last year he looked like he was a pretty good fill-in for Washington? This year it hasn't been exactly the same, but Washington's just been worse across the board. Would it be someone like that where you just hope you can maximize their talent, especially in an Andy Reid offense?
Yeah, in an Andy Reid offense, you gotta grab a quarterback. Like again, I know Kirk Cousins is a guy that they're eventually going to move on from in Atlanta. I know the cap hit is ridiculous, but like they're not. Kirk Cousins is not long there for Atlanta. Is as much as he keeps putting on these unbelievable Thursday night performances, that is not his job. Obviously.
He can't play the Bucs or on Thursday Night Football every week. Eventually, he has to play someone else on a different day.
Exactly right. Yeah, but Atlanta will eventually move off. They were trying to move off him this past year, but again, you can't after 1 year of the 4-year deal, you can't move off him that quickly. Yeah, like he'll be on the table. I believe if you just have guys that are like, you can't bring in like a young quarterback to run an Andy Reid. Like that would be punting on the season. You need someone that's experienced.
I have a question for you. If he's available, would you think about like a Mac Jones on a 2-year deal or something of that sort?
Absolutely. I mean, Mac Jones to fill in. We saw them. I mean, heck, San Francisco with Shanahan. Talk about another guy like Andy Reid that you can win games with it, no matter the quarterback. I mean, we saw Matt Moore win games with Andy Reid at quarterback the year the Chiefs won their first Super Bowl. I believe Matt Moore came in and was like 3-1 or 3-2 in the relief of Mahomes when he had the hyperextension knee injury. So yeah, like Mac Jones for sure. I mean, Mac Jones, I think won 5 or 6 games in Purdy's absence this year. So of course that's on the table. I mean, there's other guys that are like at this point they're seasoned veterans. They're in the league now that they can run an offense for. And again, we're assuming the worst here. Like there's a world where Mahomes, recovers very quickly and he's ready before, before October. I mean, there's a world where that happens. I mean, there's with nowadays athletes recovering from injuries. You can't put it past Mahomes from getting back here in time. But I just think that right now you have a window. As long as Mahomes is at this age, like you said, 32, if he was miss all of next season. Let's say he doesn't miss all of next season. He's still in a prime age to where if they're in it next year and the AFC is again wonky, you have to go for it. You can't just punt on a season. You have to at least stabilize and get some wins and get a quarterback in there that can win games with Andy Reid. And we believe a lot of this band will be back together. Maybe not the old guys. Again, I know Chris Jones is coming up there in age now. Kelsey, will he retire? Will he not? All those questions will also be clouds above for Kansas City. But I mean, the big thing here is Mahomes. It's like you're scheduling around Mahomes.
So I want to play devil's advocate here. Let's say they're probably going to split with Vegas and Tennessee, if not win both of those games, because those teams are literally that bad, right?
They're that bad.
So let's assume Mahomes, at best, if you're Kansas City, they're telling you he won't be back till next November. It's going to be a year at least, right? Because maybe he has additional damage. And again, sometimes ACLs, it's anywhere from 9 to 12 months. That doesn't mean every guy's 9 months. That's what I feel like people hear when that comes up. He could be at the latter end of that, okay? So if you know Mahomes is going to miss, let's say, 75 to 85% of next year, if you tanked next year, you'd have a premium-ish pick this year. You'd have a premium-ish pick next year. Would that be what it takes to get this dynasty back on track? Because that's what we were talking about on our last podcast, how the Pats were kind of able to reload after Brady tore his ACL. There's a lot of similarities here, which we're going to get into in a few minutes, but regardless. So they went on a spree of 3 or 4 drafts in a row where they basically replenished the entire team. It's one of the best 4 or 5 year draft spans of all time. And that's kind of unrealistic to put on anyone, especially Kansas City, who's struggled recently with their most recent drafts. But it's easier if you have higher picks. That's just how this goes, right? You have a higher chance of getting someone that could really be a difference maker. So would tanking be the worst thing here, especially if Mahomes is already going to miss a lot of time?
If that's a guarantee that, hey, you will not be back until Thanksgiving.
Yeah, let's pretend that you don't know, like November at the absolute earliest he's back, if not longer.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, we love hypotheticals. So in the hypothetical scenario, in this scenario where Mahomes is guaranteed to miss 12 games, then I would still go into the season with the mindset of, hey, let's try and compete. Let's try to win games. I would not punt the season. I don't think coaches,
you would kind of soft tank is what you're saying.
Yeah, I would. I would see, okay, let's see what's going on the first month of the season. By the deadline, if things are going, if we're like 3-3, 4-4, if we're really middling, we want to pick a direction here. It's like, okay, do we want to get a premium pick, top 10 pick again this year in a 27 draft class that looks pretty loaded on both sides of the ball? Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst case, but I would not go into next season with a mindset of tanking, even if Mahomes was to miss significant time. Because, again, I've seen how ridiculous this AFC is this year, and I'm seeing quarterbacks in the playoffs that I never thought I'd see in the playoffs, or at least this locked into the playoffs. So I'm not saying that you can't. I mean, heck, the 49ers right now in the NFC, a better conference, are 1 game off from the 1 seed. And Mac Jones, as you just mentioned, started about, I believe, 8 or 9 games from them this year.
And I don't think anyone even notices them.
No,
they feel like they're way off to the side.
They're 1 game out of first place, and guess who's missed the entire season? Nick Bosa and pretty much Fred Warner. Like, those are the 2 best defensive players. Now,
they're the 3rd most talked about team in their own division because of how great the Rams and Seahawks have been this year as well.
Kansas City can be the 3rd most talked about their team in their division next year. If Mahomes was to miss significant time, we're talking about the Denver Broncos.
Easily, if Herbert's healthy, we were talking about that off air. If Herbert was healthy, there would be a lot of talk about this Chargers team and what they're doing right now. Because he's hurt and because he's so battered, it's kind of irrelevant. But
the reason why I would say you just can't immediately tank the year, though, is because, I mean, look, Andy Reid's not getting any younger. You can't just throw away a year of Andy Reid.
Mike, to your own point there, does that make you want to punt the year because of how good the AFC West is? Does that come into play? Because you look across the Chargers, I know they've been snake bitten as a franchise. Surely they can't have this many injuries next year.
Well, we said that every year.
All over the board. Everywhere in the offensive line, they're on like their 3rd string guard. It's getting ridiculous there.
I know.
Surely they have to be a little bit healthier next year. And then Denver, even if they have some injury bad luck, they're still going to be better than Kansas City on paper. So at best, you're entering the season without Mahomes, and maybe in the kind of the Vegas tier, kind of, especially if they're able to upgrade at some positions, aka their head coach and quarterback.
Yeah. No, I know. You know where I'm gonna go with this, though. I expect some regression from Denver, just in terms of one score wins. Like there's gonna be some
Yeah,
regression
that's going to happen to them as well. But there's
Totally
no
get it.
doubt that they'll still be a class or two ahead of Kansas City without Mahomes.
100%. Especially in the scenario we're playing right now, where Mahomes is out until Thanksgiving. Like in this scenario, yes, they are not.
I think that's more likely than not, Mike. I just do because of his age. He's not young. He has a lot of wear and tear on his body. If he was, let's say, Jackson Dart, I'd feel a little bit more confident that he'd be able to get back in a sooner timeline, less hits, younger guy, more athletic. Mahomes is athletic per se, but he's not like this super athlete by any means, at least not with his lower body there.
Well, okay, so hypothetically here, because again, that was that scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, we could bring up the Patriots scenario where, remember, 07 they lose in the Super Bowl to the Giants and fall short of the 17-0 season. 08 is when Brady obviously tears his ACL. It's the one time in 20 years where we have a different AFC East division champion. This year ends a long drought of Kansas City dominating, I believe, 10 years in a row now of them winning the AFC West. Pretty similar to the So again, if this is just a bad year, if 08 is 2025 in the case where Mahomes tears his ACL.
You want to know the issue though? Brady did that in the opener.
100%,
Mahomes is doing this so late into the season.
Totally agree. I know.
It's going to hang over into next year. And let's just do it. We're beating around the bush. Let's just do it. We have to do a Mahomes legacy check-in because this does have unparalleled just similarities, really, to what happened with Brady in that New England team. So right now, let's talk about it. Mahomes, as of this date, 3 MVPs, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, and 3 All-Pros. So he's could be 31, 32 when he comes back. The team's never been worse around him. I don't think that's really debatable. As far as his weapons, Rashee Rice will be there. Outside of him, I have no idea who will be left. But maybe they move off Rice because of the off-field distractions and just the fact he hasn't really performed that well this year. But I'm going to assume Rice is there. So let's talk about everyone else. Hollywood Brown could be on the way out. Xavier Worthy will be towards the end of his rookie contract. Yeah. He has just been really disappointing right now. Who knows
there, but you'll be kind of looking to replace. He'll be there,
his option will be up. That'll be a case of contention. The running back room, there's no way Kareem Hunt's back. Pacheco, it seems like they've soured on a bit. Rashard Smith, they don't really seem to use very much. As far as tight ends are concerned, Noah Gray's been terrible this year. Kelsey seemingly has to retire at the end of this, right?
You would think, yeah.
And so you're going to have some people on the offensive line, but you have Rashee Rice, you have Patrick Mahomes, you probably have Xavier Worthy, and then after that, it's question marks all across the board. So right now, as far as Mahomes' legacy is concerned, this catching Brady dynamic that we've seen basically since he won his third, it seemed like this was going to be a real debate. Now, it's going to get to the point where I'm not even sure he's going to pass Montana. That's where we're at.
I think he passes Montana. I think he passes
You
Montana.
think? Because I think right now he's definitively third. You can argue he's second, right? There's no doubt about that.
100%. Short list right now. 2 or 3. Yeah.
Heading in, if this team doesn't really figure it out, it's going to be tough for him in his last few years. Look, quarterbacks have never played longer, but he just tore his ACL, and he has so many hits to his name, as I keep bringing up. I think it's going to be a lot harder than people think for him to just immediately figure it out. Because when Brady tore his ACL, Brady's a stationary quarterback. I know he came back better than ever. I get that. But Brady didn't move. He didn't need to move. As long as he could step into his passes, that's all that mattered. You could see 40-year-old Brady chucking it around the yard. Mahomes' arm is still going to be there.
He's
but
you know,
one of the best parts of Mahomes' game is ability to extend plays. If he loses some of that, he's simply not the same guy. His effectiveness simply deteriorates. And even this year, when the team was bad, if Mahomes wasn't able to move around as much, they'd have like 5 wins, Mike. They'd be even worse than they are now. So if he comes back and he's a little bit shaky, especially like with the running around stuff, the lateral movement, which with ACL tears in football, that tends to happen. It just does. In this physical of a sport, it just does happen. I'm a little bit worried about the level he can get to after this. I am. I
understand. I understand you are. Again, maybe I'm just being naive. I've watched a lot of Mahomes documentaries, little docuseries stuff. I just think the way he trains, the way he's going to get after this, I don't think it's all doom and gloom. And again, that's maybe just me being the glass half full person here for the Chiefs' perspective here, but I don't think I mean, it's not like he's not at the age where Kevin Durant was at whenever he got his first major injury in basketball. Again, I know it's different sports, but we've seen guys look like themselves again after major surgeries on
Yeah,
major injuries, I should say. Like, and I know quarterbacks different scenario here. Like you'll see torn Achilles, you'll see torn ACLs to pass rushers or guys who just normally they take a bad plant, non-contact injury. For a quarterback, obviously, it's much more difficult to because Mahomes is built on that lateral, like that lateral elusiveness, that scrambling stuff that he had. So yeah, if he loses that, of course, it's a different player. I just happen to think he won't lose that. I do believe that again, off an injury, maybe the first year back off an injury, you'll lose a little bit of like we saw with even older quarterbacks when they're bouncing back from an injury, you're going to lose a little bit of that first year off, maybe. But I do believe that Mahomes can get back to playing what he was at an MVP level. I really do believe that. Like, I still think he's one of the short list of one of the most talented players in the history of the sport. And I don't think one ACL injury would diminish my thinking of he can't attack this and get back to what I saw him just two
Well,
short
can
years
I
ago.
counter that a little bit? So there's not a great recent history, of top guys getting hurt and coming back great. It's kind of a grim list. So let's start here. So Brady obviously came back. He didn't really move much, as I keep saying over
I
and over
understand.
again.
I understand.
So I feel like that doesn't count to the
But if
same
you're on a
degree.
list with Brady, you're good. If you're on a list
Yeah,
with
if
Brady,
you're
which
on
he
a list with
already is,
Brady,
and
you should feel good.
you should feel
Rodgers
pretty
had
good.
numerous kind of
A lot of injuries.
mid-term injuries throughout his
Rotator
career.
cuff, ankle.
Yeah,
He's had a
he
lot,
had
yeah.
all these, like, nothing super long, but kind of these like anywhere from like 4 to 8 week injuries that kind of plagued some of the prime of his career. But it was never anything that big, so he's kind of fine.
Breeze had the
Breeze
one.
had the one, and he's another guy that didn't move around a ton, so there's that. I was also thinking about Rodgers' second injury and how he just looked like that. His inability to just evade the tiniest bit of pressure, how that's kind of ruined his last few years of his career. Because Brady could at least do that still. That never really went away for him. Even in his last Tampa year, he could at least like step up and kind
He
of
could
do the
still
hopscotch thing, if you will.
you could still
Rodgers
slide and
can't
dip and dive.
really do that anymore, and I think that's really hurt him. If he could still do that, I think he's still a decent enough thrower of the ball that he'd be playing at a decent enough level. He just lost that totally. So that's kind of where it's went sideways for him. Especially for the mobile guys, it's just not super precedented where you see these guys that are able to extend plays, get hurt, and keep kind of going. So I guess that's my only thing here where I'd be a little bit worried. I was thinking of Peyton, who, again, wasn't
The
super
neck.
mobile, but he had
Yeah.
the neck thing. That was a pretty big deal. Big Ben, another guy,
I'm
he
looking at Big Ben,
started
yeah.
a little mobile, and he kind of changed his game a little bit where he was a pure pocket passer at the end of it. So there's ways to do it. Mahomes could just be a pure gunslinger after this and just, stay in the pocket, take some hits, and just launch it downfield, kind of what he did when he first came in the league. But I think it's a little bit naive to suggest he's going to be the exact same guy. I'm not saying he can't be great still. I think he's just going to be in a different way if he is going to be great.
Yeah, I don't think he has to be the exact same guy, but I do think he can get back to playing at a level that was similar to what he played when he won and went to Super Bowls. Like, again, I think last year Kansas City went to the Super Bowl, and I don't think Mahomes had his best year by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
We've seen better Mahomes years that did not result in a Super Bowl appearance. So,
Well, that's the problem, Mike. He's coming off a year last year where he was good, not great. This year was even worse than that.
yeah. No,
So
I
it's
know.
not like this comes at a great time either. So I think we also would be remiss if we didn't add that caveat in here as
Yeah,
well.
but I'm still going to go back to the Brady mold again. What happened in 09? New England did not get back to the Super Bowl, and that was
No.
again the year after Brady's ACL injury. 2010, they famously lose as a 14-2 team. They lose to Mark Sanchez and the Jets.
Thanks
Brady
for keep reminding me all the
no
time.
problem. No problem. Then the following year, they lose to the other New York team. So Brady did not win his fourth until 2014 in that famous, Butler interception. So if you keep knocking on the door, eventually, I think you're gonna.
But he was still dominant, though. He was still
100%.
dominant. Won an MVP in that stretch. Probably should have won another as well. So he was still, he was still Brady. There
Right.
wasn't really a drop off.
But for Mahomes specifically, like rings is the most important thing here. Like if he sacrifices,
Sure, yeah.
one, okay, I don't have an MVP season this year, but I get to the Super Bowl and win it. Like we saw Peyton his last year was awful, like really unwatchable. Yet
Terrible.
he won a ring. No one really cares that Peyton was awful that last year. He won a ring. So in terms of
And that
Patrick
ring helps
chasing-
him all time, too. It
helped him,
does.
and he
It
wasn't
shouldn't
good,
at
yeah.
all because he did nothing. To some people, it definitely matters that he is, too.
I think that was one of those you see the meme where it's like, the old person and then the young guys are carrying him up, and it's like that was Peyton Manning on that Broncos team. I
Yeah.
think if you're the Chiefs to attack this rebuild, because it is a rebuild, not a retool, I think you have to attack this draft and then next year's draft. However next year goes, I think regardless whether you're average or you're bottom out, whatever it is, this draft, next year's draft,
I gotta ask you a way to do it, Mike. I have to. I'd be a bad Patriots fan if I didn't.
ask me.
From around 2010 to 2014, there was kind of this notion that the Pats were looking for the successor to Brady. And this sounds funny saying it now, but it's what happened. There's Ryan Mallett, rest in peace, and there was Jimmy Garoppolo. Mahomes came into the season a little overweight. He was still the guy, but clearly he didn't have this cerebral offseason that he's had in prior years. There's a ton of pictures of him kind of just living his life and having the dad bod and whatnot, right? So clearly, this is, again, drawing similarities to that Brady time where he was kind of larger than life off the field for the first time and kind of was slipping a little tiny bit on the football field. Not a ton, but just a little bit. You can notice it, right? He wasn't necessarily that '07 guy who led an undefeated team, okay? Do the Chiefs to put a fire under Mahomes off an ACL, off his worst year as a pro? You can't argue it. This was not a good Mahomes year. It simply wasn't, okay?
Oh yeah.
Do you take a quarterback in like the third or fourth round and just leave it there? It doesn't have to be the next guy. You don't even have to say it's the next guy. Do you just do something like that? Because they haven't done that in the Mahomes era. They've never toyed with life after Mahomes. They've never brought it up ever. And why would you, right? There's no reason to. But at this
Got a
point,
lifetime contract there now. Yeah,
is
of
it
course you wouldn't bring
something you kind of put into the ether just to toy with it just a little bit?
Absolutely not. No disrespect
You're
to your
saying
Patriots.
absolutely not.
Not even close. No disrespect to your
Okay.
Patriots. This is where they should not follow your guys' mold. All that
I
did was
agree with
create.
you. I agree
I
with
don't
you.
think they should do this at all. No, I think this was a mistake at the time. Whether it lit a fire under Brady or not, I don't believe that's the correct route to. I don't think you need to light a fire under Patrick Mahomes. Maybe that's a hot take. I don't think you really need to do that. I think you need to build this
Can I
roster.
say this? I think
No,
every
but actually, you
player
agree.
needs a fire at some point. I think every
Okay,
player, especially when you're as great at Mahomes, needs a little extra motivation.
but do you agree that
But
this roster needs to be built? We
yeah,
don't need a
that's what I was going
random.
to say. The roster needs to be built. And let's just call a spade a spade. This team has had a lot of unwanted attempts in the last few years from everything from on the field stuff with just not being up to standard, the offensive line taking a step back, the receivers not being nearly as good enough, George Karlaftis' contract not being up to snuff, the corners taking a slight step down, which has dramatically affected the defense. Pretty much everyone on the back end, as far as the safeties are concerned, just not as good as you want them to be.
That's
And
my
then
point.
off the
Yeah.
field with Rashee Rice's car incident, all the Taylor Swift hoopla, all the Brittany Mahomes and the brother there, hoopla, all that stuff as well. So this team's had a lot of drama, and the Patriots at that time had a lot of drama, and it affected the team for a little while. I
You know
believe
what?
that.
Hey, you know what would create more drama? Drafting a
Drafting
quarterback
another quarterback,
anywhere
exactly.
near the
That's what I
top of
meant. That's what I meant.
exactly right. Oh yeah, but to go back to your initial point, when the Packers did it with Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love, I think Aaron thought we're a piece away as a roster from winning a Super Bowl, and they drafted a quarterback. And I don't know if that was to think. Again, he had two MVP seasons after that. So again, maybe that was their logic. But I think their logic was we're looking for the life after Aaron Rodgers. When New England did it, I don't think that it's like, again, Kansas City right now, it's a roster problem to me, not a Mahomes problem. So if you were to draft a quarterback to light a fire under Mahomes, I think you still have a lot of issues on the roster. That would be my logic there. So I think you need to build this roster around Mahomes so that when he does come back, he's not throwing to half retired Travis Kelce. He's not throwing to, do we even think he's any good, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown. Like, we have to fix the roster around him. Kareem Hunt's still there. Kareem Hunt was there when Mahomes was drafted. That's
I
maybe
want
an
to wrap
issue.
this up one way, Mike. If you're in the Kansas City war room right now, you're getting a top 15 pick. Give me 3 names you're targeting right now to immediately improve this roster in the first round.
Jeremiah Love, Kenyon Sadiq, and they just drafted a tackle last year. I know they like Josh Simmons, but pretty good tackle draft. It has to be, you can. I think you would throw Carnell Tate in there. I love Carnell Tate. I think those are 3 guys who immediately would walk on the
So
field day
3
one.
playmakers. So
Yes, absolutely.
basically a new running back, tight end, and wide receiver. That's what you want
Absolutely.
them to attack. Okay.
I think that they've shown that, again, they've drafted in day 2 and
Who's
day
number
3.
1 of that list, by the way?
Is Kelce retiring or is he coming back for another year?
Does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter. I'd like I would love Jeremiah Love, but not too high. I'm not a big don't draft a running back in the top 10 unless it's,
So would you try to
Bijan or
trade back a little bit? So your guy's Jeremiah Love, regardless if it's like the first round, you just trying to target
I'd like
Jeremiah
to
Love.
target him. I don't know how I could get him, but I'd like to
Okay.
target him.
I
Yes.
hear you.
Like, for example, last year, Genti goes in the top 5 or top 6. 2 years before, Bijan Robinson goes in the top 10. I would like, if I was the Chiefs, to maybe slide back and still get the guy I'm targeting. I don't know if that's, can you have your cake and eat it too? But
Right.
yes, in that order, I would love Sadiq, your guy from Oregon, to kind of, hey, push out.
And that's
Kelce
immediately to
and
trying to take pressure off Mahomes when he comes back.
you have a guy when he comes back too. You have a guy that we believe is a blue chipper in round 1 or whatever, that you can have. Like, again, they have young guys defensively that they like. Maybe we again, Karlaftis they like a lot. McDuffie they like a lot. The linebackers they like a lot. They need to surround Mahomes because this offense is broken. I mean,
I like McDuffie. I like Leo Chanel. I think after that, everyone's kind of expendable. Even Nick Bolton. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know.
And again, Chris Jones is on the last kind of the last shelf life of his.
He's kind of the NBA once a week kind of guy. With Chris Jones, it's kind of once every 3 weeks you get something really good out of him, and the other weeks he's kind of invisible. That's where he's at right now.
Well, yeah, I would say like once every 5 drives, I'd be like, oh, there's Chris Jones. Yeah, and it happens like that sometimes. But like offensively, all the Chiefs games have been kind of similar this year. Like all their games have looked sort of like this, even before Mahomes went down. This is what it's looked like. So I think you just have to revamp the roster around Mahomes. Because I think, yes, he played bad this year. This was his worst year easily, statistically, and just watching games. But I think that's more of that falls in. I don't think he got worse as a player. He's playing worse, but I do think there's external factors around him as to why he's playing worse. And a guy in his prime right now, you wouldn't just, he just fell off a cliff. There's no explanation for this. There's obviously some sort of explanation because Andy Reid is still there. You still have your guys there, but these guys are all older. Again, it's just more shelf life for Kelce. It's more shelf life for Kareem Hunt. Pacheco, I don't think is that good. The offensive line keeps being reshuffled every single season. Eventually, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have a season like this, and maybe you have to look in the mirror and say, okay, how do we get younger around Mahomes and more dynamic around Mahomes? Because their last 3 years have been a less dynamic offense. This is how they've been playing the last few years. It's been, okay, we're going to be a little bit cheaper on offense. We're going to invest in our defense. That's why they didn't pay Tyreek Hill and all those other guys. And that's been their way of winning.
Well, Mike, I'm glad you brought Tyreek Hill's name up because this is where I was going. Since he left, they've been obsessed with finding his replacement, and they've tried to get a lot of guys in a similar mold that are just kind of small speedsters. I'm thinking of Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, Tyquan Thornton, Jalen Royals, all these guys that in theory are like Tyreek Hill-ish, but they don't have 10% of the talent of Tyreek Hill. No. And that's really affected this team because it's obvious they want speed to push the ball vertically because that's when Mahomes was at the peak of his powers, when he was able to kind of just chuck the ball to Tyreek Hill and prime Travis Kelce was still there. That's when they were able to cook. Kelce was taking the middle of the field. Hill was going vertical. Everyone else could kind of work off that, and that's all you needed. That was fine. The offensive line was really good. They still had a semblance of a run game. That was that. Now, the run game's gone to shit. The wide receivers can't create separation. They're still fast. They're still small. They're just like Tyreek, but they're not as good because they can't actually create separation. And football is more than just speed. We've seen glimmers of hope with the likes of Brown and Thornton and Worthy, where once in a while they can break the defense, but they don't have good enough underneath guys either because Rice just hasn't been as good. Kelce's rope-a-dope stuff has kind of gone sideways because he just can't do it anymore. That herky-jerky kind of 5-yard telepathy. I'm going to move to my left and Mahomes is going to hit me at the exact time. And all of a sudden, this little route that didn't appear open just got us 15 yards. We all know what I'm talking about. We've seen it 100 times. All that stuff's gone. So they kind of all new weapons. I'm going to assume Rice eventually figures it out. I thought he was way too good last year.
Yeah.
How bad he's been this year has been kind of shocking. I know.
He's also coming off an ACL. He's also coming off an ACL.
Off-season hoopla, like I get it, I do, but it just feels like they need just a whole blank slate, don't they? Like literally change everything.
That was their magic. That stuff that you talked about right there. That was their trump card, if you will. That was what made them so special. If teams are going to continue, because like I said, they need dynamic downfield threats. But once they took that away with the too high look, that teams kept playing Mahomes in these too high safety looks. They're not going to allow anyone to get deep. But because you had a good run game, because you had Kelce taking up the middle of the field, you could still reinvent your offense and be like, okay, we don't need the big play, we don't need the downfield stop. We can still beat teams death by a thousand cuts. Now you can't even do that because, again, their ground game this year, Mahomes has been their leading rusher in half their games. That is a major, major problem. That means you're probably not going to win games. If he's your leading rusher, that means you don't really have any semblance of a run game because most of Mahomes' stuff is not designed. It's scrambling, which means that they're not even
No,
designed
and he's
runs aren't going
still
anywhere.
kind of a stallion. He's not this like super hyper accurate guy either. He can't really play like that. So
So X, their design runs aren't going anywhere. That's a problem. So you need to get back
no.
to help out your quarterback by if you're running the ball effectively, that sets up everything else. So they need to look themselves in the mirror and kind of surround Mahomes because this is easily the worst semblance. It's like Brady in 19 almost. Not going to go that far, but it's like Brady 19.
It's
They had
close. I would
pretty
kind of
close.
go that far.
It is pretty
They
close.
tried to get N'Keal Harry. That was a
Nobody
failure.
could separate. Like nobody could separate that team.
Similar to Xavier Worthy, just immediately was apparent that guy just wasn't as good as anyone wanted him to be. At
No.
least Worthy can get schemed open. Harry wasn't that good. Edelman was on the back nine. And yeah, it just kind of was terrible after that. The run game was kind of non existent. Brady, it felt like everything was 6, 7 yard dump offs, and defenses are just playing so far down on them at the end
If you
that
can
just
afford to,
no
yeah.
one could create any separation. It was all basically stuff out of the backfield. It was gross at the end. Bubble screens.
That's signs of a roster that maybe needs to be looked at and be like, okay, maybe let's kind of change some things here. So Kansas City has bigger issues right now than obviously Mahomes' injury takes precedent, but their roster as a whole, when he comes back, which we don't know the timeline as
Yeah,
of right
Mike,
now.
we had this same conversation before he tore his ACL.
We did.
Like,
I know.
that only makes things 10 times harder and worse now. That's
Yes.
all this does. So
It's
we
a
were
bigger
already
Yeah.
kind of confused on what the next path was because of how many issues they truly have around Kansas City. And
Oh no.
you were a little bit more optimistic than I was, but now it's kind of hard to be fully optimistic at all.
No, the Mahomes injury is just another like, oh shit, now he's injured. That's another problem we have. Like we already had all these issues before he was injured. Now it's like, oh my gosh, he's got a possible 9 to 12 month injury that we have
There
to worry
were
about.
holes in the wall, and now the roof is caved in.
Oh,
That's pretty much where we're at.
100%. It's the Titanic. So you're only going to save this thing now if you do hit on these draft picks. That is really what it comes down to. You got to hit on these draft picks. I mean, that's really what it is. When he comes back, have you adequately enough built a roster around him where he can get back to playing at his level of football? Whether or not he's moving the same way as his or not, can you build an offense around him to where he can play at or near the level he played at when you last reached the Super Bowl, which was just 9 short months ago or 10 short months ago?
I think it's going to take a little while, but we'll see.
Hey, it could take 4 years. That he'd be right on track. Remember 09 to 2014?
Yeah,
It
I
could
mean,
take however long.
he'd be like 34, 35 then. So
Can he
that'd
rattle
be a
off
little tough.
No, I know, but can he rattle off a couple at the back end of his career like you saw Elway did? Like you saw, I mean, can he rattle off a couple down the stretch? I think he will pass Montana. Is my overarching point here. I do believe he will pass. It may take a while.
I think he will too, but I think it's gonna. I think before it was kind of a preconceived notion. It was like 99.9%. I think it
Like
took a hit today.
78%.
I think it's probably like in the 80s now. And that
Yeah, I
doesn't
was gonna say
sound like a
78%.
lot, but I think that's a big deal, at least when you're looking at kind of historical context. But Mike, we got to move on because he wasn't the only bad injury today. Micah Parsons also tore his ACL, presumably. I don't think it's 100% confirmed yet, but I think it's
They
like
said they fear it.
99. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
that's
fear,
repeated.
and it sure looked like it when it happened. It looked like something snapped. So the Packers season will still go on. It's not
Yeah.
quite the same situation as Kansas City.
Yeah,
but
they'll make the playoffs.
they'll make the playoffs. They still have a chance, I suppose, to win their division, but man, is it
Like
going to be
Chicago.
tougher now. Are the Packers done as a contender, Mike, for the next 2 years? And does this impact their future timeline? Because this is a team, before the season, we weren't really bullish on. And I feel like, despite their record, they've been exactly who we thought they've been this entire time.
Yes.
They're kind of a fake good team. They've beat some decent teams. I understand. You don't have to tell me their record. I've watched all the games.
We
But
know.
Jordan Love is just simply not trustworthy, especially late in games, especially late in critical games.
You saw him today.
Congrats, you can play well late against Pittsburgh. I'm talking about games like today, on the road against Denver. What do? Oftentimes, he just simply falls short, and the wide receiver room is constantly hurt. They still don't have an alpha. Having 5 wide receiver 2s and 3s doesn't really help matters.
Injury
Josh
prone wide
Jacobs
receiver.
isn't getting any younger, so that's an issue. The offensive line's pretty good. It's not great, but the defense is what really was kind of saving their floor, and it was a lot of Micah Parsons
That's
because
exactly
of
right.
how well he was playing this year, the second best defender in all of football behind Myles Garrett. He was creating so many double teams for himself that was helping everyone else supplement that and get to the quarterback basically on his behalf, if not him just bowling through and getting there regardless. So without him, that really changes the equation. And Parsons was supposed to be this move that elevated the Packers from a team that we thought was, like 10, 11 wins, fake good, nothing that great, to a bona fide NFC contender. And even though we didn't think they'd make a lot of noise in the playoff, they were at least set up to do so. They were in the hunt for the 1 seed. Now, without Parsons, presumably not only the rest of this year, a lot of next year,
Yeah.
and he's another guy, especially an athletic pass rusher, that kind of injury matters quite a bit, okay? Are the Packers kind of done now as a bona fide contender because they just lost all their ammo trading for this guy, and he might never be the same again?
Yeah, no, I mean, our whole thing was heading into the year, the only reason why we thought they were contenders was because of this guy, Micah
Right.
Parsons, the guy they brought in. So we had, I believe our take on the Packers was they're a fun team that will probably lose in the wild card round. They're going to win 10, 11 games in the wild card round. Then they get him, and remember, everyone's September champions. They're like, okay, they're going to coast to the Super Bowl. They're going to run through the NFC, and they're going to meet Mahomes, Allen, or Lamar in the Super Bowl. That's what everyone was saying. And I was just starting to buy into the Packers, not as a team that could win the Super Bowl, but I was like, okay, the way they're playing right now could travel and they could win 2 playoff games if they could get a bye, whatever it is. They can make an NFC Championship game. Is basically what I was thinking, which is probably what the move was to make. They can make a team from a wild card go to a team that's winning on Championship Sunday. And I was just gonna buy in because of the way Love's been playing he's a very streaky quarterback, but the way he's been playing the last couple of weeks, it's like, okay, can he go on like a 6-week heater and maybe make a playoff
Yeah.
run? It's possible, because I love this defense. And then that happens, and that's another bummer. So 2 bummers in like a span of 3 hours, which again, we rarely see this in the NFL. We started the podcast talking about this is one of the most impactful Sundays in a long time for a lot of reasons. This reason is that we've seen 2 possibly potential top 5 players on the same day suffer severe torn ACLs. Possibly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's feared that Parsons suffered an ACL. It's not confirmed yet, but this is, I think the Packers are done as contenders. It's a long-winded way of at least, I mean, certainly this year, they're not making a Super Bowl without Micah Parsons. In January, we both know this. In January, can you on a 3rd and 9 get to the quarterback and affect a Matthew Stafford? Can you do it? The answer right now would be probably not without Micah Parsons. Next year, again, another year off of an ACL injury, probably not. So this 2-year window that they thought they had, I would lean, I don't think they're contenders anymore. I think they're back to what I thought they were in August before they made this trade, which we both thought, okay, they're a nice team, they're a cute team. They'll probably lose in the wild card to a team that's just flatly better than them. And that's what happened last year against Philadelphia. They ran into a team that's just flatly better than they are. And I believe this year, without Micah Parsons, they're going to run into a team that's just flatly better than they are. So it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate timing because they were, Love was just playing probably his best football. It always seems to happen right at Thanksgiving against the Lions. He gets a nice little Thanksgiving game against the Lions, and he plays like really good football for a few weeks. And he was playing well the last couple of weeks against the Bears. He was awesome. Against Detroit, he was awesome. I forget who they played the week before that, but he's been good 3 weeks in a row now. And now this happens in Denver, and it's like, wow, where do you go from here? This defense that's been awesome all year long loses their number 1 guy right before the playoffs. You play Chicago on Saturday on a short week, and this whole thing seems like it's crashing down. I would lean, no, they are done as contenders, because the reason why I thought they were contenders in the first place, I think me and you both, was because they got the acquisition of Micah Parsons.
So looking long term, he's another guy. Who knows if he actually plays next year? It's going to be tough, right? He could be 28 the next time he plays because his birthday is in May. So that's 27 this year. If he doesn't play next year, he could be 28 and a half the next time he plays. So younger for sure, and a much more athletic guy than Mahomes. But his athleticism really is what makes him so impactful. He is just a gross athlete. So if he's even 90% of what he is now, that is still a big issue because he is able to win purely based off athleticism half the time, not to mention just his pass rushing prowess. So that could really limit him in the future. And again, the precedent for this is all over the place. Some guys come back pretty much exactly the same. Some guys take a step or 2 back. And when you invest as much as you do in Micah Parsons, this kind of injury is a disaster, right?
Yeah.
This could really hurt said investment. And they thought he'd be there, and eventually you just get Love on a little bit of a heater, even if he's just average, right? Even if he goes on a heater and then is average for a week, you can still win out because you have a guy like Micah Parsons on
On
the
the
other side
defensive
kind of
side.
wreaking havoc, and the
Yeah.
defense is just good enough. And look, we just saw Jalen Hurts win a Super Bowl, okay? And that guy doesn't seem that good whatsoever. And we thought this in his entire tenure, the team was kind of hiding a lot of his warts. And the second they're not able to do that, you kind of see him struggle quite a
Fade.
bit.
Yeah.
Love is clearly better than that, I would say. I don't think there's a ton of debate there. He at least has a lot more raw talent, right? Just,
If we were to do our quarterback rankings tomorrow, I would have Jordan Love higher than Jalen Hurts. Pretty comfortable.
oh, yeah. I just mean just apples to apples here. Same roster, same
Yeah.
everything, right?
Yeah.
And I would definitely have Love higher. So I think the Packers are in okay shape as far as a draft pick here, a draft pick there. Maybe you're able to cobble up enough where you hit on somebody and you're doing great. It feels like with them, though, they've never been able to find that guy at the right time. They just haven't. Even in the Rodgers era, where they somehow were able to get Devontae Adams, they can never supplement that with somebody else to
The Adams
kind
era
of.
was the opposite of this. Right now they have 5 wide receiver twos. In the Devontae Adams era, they had a dominant number 1, and it was like, who's the second guy? Alan
Yes.
Lazard?
Yes.
It was like, who does Aaron trust besides Devontae Adams? He was just throwing to Devontae Adams the entire time. It was like a high usage rate. It's like, oh, they'll go to Devontae Adams here.
Why
Or
is Jeff
Robert
Janis
Tonyan.
taking over a playoff game? Oh, because we have
wait,
no
Jeff
one
Jan-
else to. That's probably
Is
why.
that Bob Tonyan on the like? What's going on here? It was so strange. So yeah, the Packers.
How
it's like
old's
the time-
Mercedes Lewis? What? What is going on?
I know, it's unbelievable. It was very strange. So yes, the Packers have had this issue where it's like the timing. It's like, oh, can they get a number 1 guy because they have so many damn wide receiver twos right now who keep getting injured. Watson, another one who went down today. That one did not look good. So they just got him back. That was like their speed guy. Jaden Reed's been in and out of the lineup. Wicks, Dobbs, all the other guys, Golden, like they've been nicked up a little bit. It's just kind of the unfortunate. So when you don't have a dominant number 1 guy and you have a bunch of just number 2s who are in and out of the lineup, that inconsistency coupled with a quarterback who is kind of streaky at times, you need your defense to kind of like we had a formula last year. We talked about it with the Eagles. If you get 2 decent games from Jalen Hurts with the way your offensive line plays, with the way your defense as a whole plays,
I don't even think they got that, to be honest.
they didn't. They
got one. It was the Super Bowl.
I know. Yeah, you could argue that the Washington game where Hurts had a decent game stat line wise. I mean that game was over at halftime. But
we could have played quarterback for that team. And
I agree. The first 2 rounds he wasn't any good. But yes, in the Packers' mind, the way they're building this roster, if Jordan Love could do that with this roster, I saw the vision. I was starting to finally see it these last couple weeks. I was like, okay, I was not high on Green Bay. I don't think you were either, but because again, it looked like they were the same team record wise. We don't care that they were last year, but they have Micah Parsons now. So I'm like, okay, I'm looking at this team a little bit differently. Can they maybe make a run in this NFC? And then this happens, and I'm like looking at them totally different. I'm like, okay, where is their window now? Because if Parsons isn't the same guy when he comes back, where do they look to go to? Can they at the same time get a guy for Jordan Love so when Parsons is back, they don't have to fully rely on him being a guy that can carry this defense late in games? Do they have a guy on the offensive side of the ball? Josh Jacobs will be, again, a year and a half older by the time that Micah Parsons is back to return form. So can they marry that time together? That would be my big question, because that seems very, again, it's not like impossible, but it seems pretty daunting. It's similar to the Chiefs thing where it's like, can you do that? Because right now you're wasting what was an awesome year for the Packers defense, and still is an awesome year for the Packers defense, and a great ground game for Green Bay. They had the ingredients of a team that could win a couple playoff games, and now they feel like a team that's going to lose in the first round.
The NFC is not necessarily a young conference, so I guess that is kind of what Green Bay is holding their hat on. Love's on the younger side of all these guys. It's kind of Caleb Williams is, the name, right?
In your division.
He's next up in the division.
Jaden
But outside
Daniels.
of that,
Yeah,
Rams with Stafford, he's obviously at the tail end of his career. I don't think either of us really think Hurts is going to be around that much longer. I mean, maybe he just does the same thing he's doing right now. But
well, Jaden Daniels is a young.
Yeah, but you're worried about his rap sheet with injuries. He's been
been
injured since back to college, right? So there's that going on. Baker's not super young anymore. Darnold's not super young anymore, right?
Yeah.
Goff.
Bryce Young.
Plenty of these guys are on the younger side, so to say. Okay,
I thought you were going to stop me at Bryce Young. You didn't stop me at Bryce Young.
I just ignored it.
Oh, you ignored it. Okay, that was nice. I thought you were gonna. I thought I was gonna get like scolded at. I was waiting for like, oh,
what I mean is, Love at least matches everyone else's timeline at the absolute worst. So they still have time to kind of reshuffle the pieces around. I just would be a little bit scared if I were them about, sending as much capital as he did for Micah, which seemed awesome at the time. everyone was like,
I
"That's
can't
it?
yeah,
Wow." But
but I can't fault them for going for it because I
no,
saw
you
the
can't. You can't.
in this window, I can't yes, the injury sucks. It's not like Micah Parsons got traded there and was not good, and that's why it's a terrible trade because they didn't have like, they went for it and it backfired because he wasn't the player they thought he was. He was the player they thought he was, and fortunately, an injury happened at the wrong time of the year where they were just clicking as a unit on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. So I can't fault them for going for it, but it's gonna be looked at as that in hindsight. It's like, "Oh, well, would you really spend that kind of?" But again, we just saw it happen last January with the Eagles. If you get a team that can get at the quarterback with 4 in a Super Bowl, you can beat a Patrick Mahomes, you can beat a Josh Allen, you can beat a Lamar Jackson, or whoever comes out of the
Kind of
AFC
beat
this year.
anybody. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. But I'm saying in the AFC, who can they match up with? And this year in the AFC won't be any of those guys probably. But yeah, if you're in Green Bay, you're looking at okay, can we take this wild card roster that is a good roster? No doubt about it. Can we get to a Super Bowl and close a Super Bowl with a pass rush? So I'm not going to fault the team for going out. Like, for example, tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but this season, if somebody was to go out and get a Myles Garrett in the trade, or if they were to go out and get a Max Crosby in a trade, like I wouldn't fault them for doing that, even if it backfired. Because if you believe you're close, if you're a perceived threat to win a conference, or if you are a perceived playoff threat and you go for it with a pass rusher, I don't think that's a move where I would like for the Colts, for example. I think that was a blasphemous decision to go trade for a corner at this time. Like a corner?
And we hated it at the time, too. It was right after Daniel Jones kind of had his
5
pumpkin
turnovers.
act in Pittsburgh, where he had 5 turnovers in that game and
That was a
looked
big
like the
win.
Daniel Jones we remember. And
Yeah.
immediately they were like, we're all in. And we were a
That
bit
is going
confused
for
by
it.
that.
Yeah, X, that's pushing your cards in the middle of the table and saying, I'm going for it. I'm like, maybe don't
Yeah,
do that.
Washington did the same thing last year. Lattimore, who wasn't that great. I think my only counter to this is I don't know if Green Bay's rest of the roster was good enough to want to go all in with
either.
Micah Parsons. So
No, I
I
know. I'm
guess
saying from
that's
their
my
lens.
only issue
Yeah.
with that. But Mike, I want to transition to another team who could potentially win the Super Bowl, and that's the Buffalo Bills. And they've had quite an odd season. They have a dramatic win today, down 21-0. They come all the way back. They beat the New England Patriots. And this feels like on a day where Patrick Mahomes tears his ACL,
Yeah.
Joe Burrow is eliminated from the playoffs.
Yep.
Lamar Jackson
Doesn't look
could
very
be in
good.
the playoffs, could miss the playoffs. He hasn't looked particularly
Does it even
good.
matter? Yeah,
Regardless,
he's been
I
playing the
don't
worst
know if
football.
it does matter. Okay. And the playoff field around him has never been more wide open. If Josh Allen does not make the Super Bowl this year, it is a dramatic problem. It is not only a hit to his legacy, it's his hit as far as being a upper echelon quarterback in this league. I don't think any of that's hyperbolic. He needs, I'm
Yes.
saying this right now, he needs to make the Super Bowl this year. And
This
if he
is very-
doesn't, he
yes.
needs a really good reason why. Okay?
This is
He
very
needs
Stephen A.
everyone else around him doesn't get open kind of game. He needs a everyone gets hurt around him type of game. I don't care if this is first takes-esque, okay? I'm saying this and I mean this in my heart of hearts. He needs to make the Super Bowl this year. And today you saw what he was able to do. And part of that happened with key injuries to the Patriots. Milton Williams been out for a few weeks and Bobby Spillane got hurt during the game. And the run defense immediately reverted. This was probably the best run defense in the sport. Without those two guys, it was just Swiss cheese. Jack Gibbons was not able to do anything, nor was Kyrus Tonga up front. And those guys getting torched allowed James Cook to run all over the place. He really changed the game. And then Allen was kind of able to fill in the pieces beyond that. Buffalo scored 5 straight drives in a row, and that was the difference. And defensively, late, I think, is the story because Trevion Henderson had a massive game, and some of this game had to do with big plays on the outside. Regardless about a uncalled PI, that was most definitely a PI on Trey White on Matt Collins. That's regardless. That only gives New England probably 3 points. It's not a guarantee they score a touchdown there. I want to talk about how basically for 2 hours, the New England wide receivers were unable to get open. There was no one open. It was stunning to watch live, and this is a team where fans were begging at the deadline, please upgrade this wide receiver room. It's not good enough. Go get a Jacoby Myers. Go get a T. Higgins who is a little disgruntled in Cincinnati, it appears. Go get a guy like that. It doesn't have to be a bona fide wide receiver one. Just get someone better than the guys you have in your own room. Seemingly, it's never mattered. And early in this game, it seemed the same old, same old. It didn't matter. Buffalo started playing press coverage, and New England didn't have an answer. And this was not Drake May's best game by any means, but he had no one open. It was that simple. This was blanketed coverage, and that's weird to say about a team that put up 31 points, but a lot of that had to do with their efficiency on the ground and
Yeah, no
just
surprise.
kind of dink and dunking down the field. It had nothing to do with anything May was able to muster or on the outside. But that's not really about the Patriots. It's more about Buffalo, whose
That's right.
defense looked like, again, today, at points, it was going downhill, but for once, they were able to make stops when they needed to. It seemed like they switched a gear at some point. The corners were playing tremendous football, blanketed coverage. Does Buffalo have what it takes to make a run here? Because you are staunchly in Denver's corner, and today Denver had a great win. Bo Nix was awesome. We're not going to talk much about that game, but Denver looks to be improving,
Denver
and
will
you were
finish fourth.
really high on Denver.
Yeah,
But Buffalo has the best quarterback in the conference.
easily.
He's been all over the place, but I think when he's needed to be, he's been pretty awesome at points this year. When he's needed to be, when he's really needed to be, he's been Josh Allen, right? And the offense is kind of weird today. They won with tight ends. I've never seen anything like it. It was tight end after
Well, they
tight
have
end.
to. Have you seen their wide receiver room? I mean, my gosh.
Yeah, no one can get open.
Another guy that
But
yeah,
the tight ends could. Dawson Knox, great game. Jackson
Jackson
Hawes, I think,
Hawes.
is there. Yeah.
Georgia Tech,
He's
yeah.
a third string tight end. He was getting open, and Kincaid's obviously there.
Kincaid's
But
back, yeah.
I'm saying all this to ask you, does Buffalo have a shot here to really make a deep run? Are you a little higher? Did today change your mind on them a bit?
No, I had Buffalo winning the game. I mean, I thought Buffalo would
I
win
know
this
you had
game.
Buffalo winning the game, but the way they
The
won
way they
today, the
won
manner they won, did that change your mind of anything at all?
No, it didn't, because this is how they've been winning the last few weeks. They had a similar dramatic comeback win a week ago against Cincinnati, where they
Yeah.
really couldn't stop anybody for 3 hours, and then eventually they got this. I mean, last week it was the 2 turnovers that they got on Burrow, but they finally got a key stop at a key moment. And similarly today, they got a key stop at a key moment. It was a turnover on downs, but either way, they flip a switch at halftime. For some reason, in the second half, the Buffalo Bills that's 3 weeks in a row now. At Pittsburgh, they did nothing offensively the first half. They went crazy in the second half, ran for, I believe, 280 or 290 yards, whatever it was. And then last week against Cincinnati, turned the switch in the second half. It was 21-11 to start the fourth quarter, and Buffalo hangs 40 on Cincinnati, 39. But they hang 28 on them in the fourth quarter. And then today against New England, it's 5 straight touchdowns, as you mentioned, after a 21-0 deficit. So this was, to me, more about Buffalo than it was New England, because Buffalo all year has had an awful
100%.
run. Yeah, Buffalo all year has had an awful run defense. So I expected New England, who hasn't been running the ball great, it's like the one deficiency in their game. No, it's like, oh, the New England doesn't have a dominant run game. I expected New England to have their best run game today, because Buffalo's safeties take bad angles. They don't tackle very well. This has kind of been Buffalo's MO all year. You can run on Buffalo. I mean, heck, the Dolphins had their most dynamic run game of the year against the Bills twice, in fact. So you can do that against the Bills for sure. And New England did. But I think what you saw from Buffalo today was that switch with James Cook and Josh Allen. This is when Buffalo's most dangerous. So yes, Buffalo today, and really Buffalo the past few weeks, I think is when they're most dangerous. Is Allen playing maybe a bit more reckless? Sure. But it's kind of this helter-skelter thing where they need it to be at times, ratchet it up a little bit in key moments. They can run the ball with James Cook, and that offensive line is very good. And then Josh Allen, when called upon, designed run, scramble plays, finding tight ends or whoever at this point, they can win this way. Absolutely. Now, I wouldn't say your first take point about for his legacy, he has to make the Super Bowl. I agree with that. I'm just
Good.
saying.
I'm glad. I thought you were making fun of me.
No,
It's
I wasn't.
right.
I wasn't making fun. It's just funny because
It's the way I said it. I get it.
No, because I may not pick them to go to the Super Bowl, but I do believe he has to make the Super Bowl. Like, I'm still in Denver's corner. Don't get me wrong. I'm trying to play the fence a little bit here. I'm still picking Denver to make it out of the AFC. Yet for Josh Allen and his legacy, yeah, he's got to win the conference. He's got.
Does it give you a little pause that Josh Jacobs today had such a good game against Denver?
Really?
No.
No. I mean, we've seen Denver's defense the last few games, right? I mean, you guys have had good games against them. I mean, we saw.
Yeah, but your argument for Denver was kind of that the defense would just turn the other team's water off.
Yeah.
And the offense didn't have to be that good. That was kind of your argument for them.
Yeah, well, Denver in the fourth quarter today had like 5 sacks. So they were able to turn, eventually they turned it up. So again, in the Denver game against the Giants like 2 months ago, they gave up 30 in the first 3 quarters, and then they ratcheted up in the fourth quarter. They were able to get turnovers on Dart, and today against Love, they were able to get to him finally after 3 hours of not getting.
But didn't we just talk about Buffalo doing the same thing?
Yes. Oh no, I make no mistake. I'm not. Buffalo can make the Super Bowl. Buffalo can go into Denver and win. I'm just saying, if Josh Allen loses to Denver, I would not be. But Denver's better than Buffalo. Buffalo's roster, I've complained about it for 2 months now. Bills fans thought they were going 17-0. I was like, your roster not that good. Who are your good receivers again? I don't know. Is your
No.
defense that
And
good?
again, Mike, it depends how they lose in this hypothetical Denver matchup. If it's because Pat Surtain and Riley Moss are incredible and, everyone else on that defense up front, Nick Benito is able to get home. Like,
But do we agree
sure.
side by side? Put Denver's roster and Buffalo's roster side by
It's
side.
not close.
Just put Denver's defensive personnel next to Buffalo's defensive personnel. Yeah, I would take Denver's
They have the
defense over
coaching edge too, but Buffalo has a severe quarterback advantage, which
Right, so we
eventually
agree.
is supposed to mean something, but it just hasn't. So
Josh Allen and Bo Nix playing. Of course, I think we agree that Josh Allen in this AFC playoff field has to get out of the conference. But I think we also both agree that Denver would be a favorite in January in Denver in Mile High. I believe Denver will be a favorite
if
at
he
home.
doesn't get out of the conference, I just need to see a good reason why. It could be a critical drop on a great pass. There's examples. I'm not saying 100% if he's not able to, it's all his fault. But between this year, and I'm even going to give him next year, Mike. I'm giving him next year because Mahomes isn't there. Okay.
He's got to make the Super Bowl in one of these next 2 years.
The next 2 years are going to be massive for Josh Allen. No doubt about it. If he doesn't.
Yeah, today was I think a preview or maybe a prequel to a Bills-Pats. I think they'll meet 3 times this year. I really do.
You think the playoffs are on the horizon?
I think they'll see each other again. I think
it'd be dramatically different. I'm not saying the result would be different, but I think the game script would be dramatically different if Milton Williams and Bobby Spillane are back in the lineup for New England. I'm not. Every team has injuries, okay? But those 2 key guys, both free agent acquisitions, they are the run defense. It's not like if Jalen Hawkins, who is one of our safeties, if he's out. That's one thing. It is a top 10 defensive tackle in the sport. That's what Milton Williams is. That's what he's been this year. He's been probably top 5, to be honest.
He's also
and Bobby Spillane, who's probably one of the best just downhill, old school middle linebackers in the sport as well. Those 2 guys being out is a massive problem. Even one of them out, even when you just saw Robert Spillane early on, James Cook wasn't doing a whole ton. When he went out, James Cook started to, be LaDainian Tomlinson. So
yeah, I did have James Cook's over today, but yeah, that did help. It certainly helped him.
I'm sure you were worried for a little bit, and then all of a sudden,
the game was 21-0. I was like, boy, this is not a good game for my James Cook over. It's not good, but they were down 21 points and they were still able to run the ball effectively after all those.
And that's why they were running the ball. That was their best offense because of those guys being out.
Yeah, no, of course. But I think Buffalo, the last few weeks, they have proven that they've went now into New England and won, come from high fashion. They beat Cincinnati when they were playing good football. They went into Pittsburgh and won. Those are 2 playoff games that they've won on the road, or 2 playoff teams that are currently in the playoff field. They've went on the field. They went on the road and beaten. So I think Denver, can Denver be run on? Yeah, we saw Josh Jacobs do it today. So does Buffalo have a tactic to go into Denver hypothetically in January and win? Of course they do. And again, Josh Allen can turn to superhuman and Superman and win a game in Denver. That can absolutely happen. And I thought Buffalo was capable of winning the Super Bowl before today. I thought Buffalo, New England, and Denver, I mean, we like FanDuel. Those 3 teams, I believe, had almost identical odds to make the Super Bowl. Those are the 3.
They should, by the way.
Yeah, and I don't think anything today changed my mind. I still had Buffalo in that group of 3. I had Buffalo ahead of New England by a smidge, and I think today they win on the road. I think they might play them again. I still would trust Buffalo in those key moments. But Denver, I'm still in Denver's corner. I'm not leaving Denver's corner. I believed today they would beat Green Bay. I think next week they'll beat Jacksonville. I don't think they'll lose to Gardner Minshew on Christmas night. So I think Denver will be 14-2, and I think they'll have the 1 seed locked up before the turn of the year.
As for Buffalo, they play Philly in a few weeks, so that's a big game if they want to keep pace in the AFC East, because after that for New England, next week they have Baltimore. That could be lost, but you think they probably sweep Miami in New York there.
Yeah.
They definitely have a chance to still win the AFC East. But Buffalo, even if they're the 5...
The 1 seed seems out of reach now for New England.
I would. I thought Denver would definitely lose one of those games, but now with no Mahomes, it just seems implausible.
We agree. They won't lose to Gardner Minshew at this point.
No,
they have
absolutely not.
Yeah, their next 2 games are Trevor Lawrence, Gardner Minshew, and then the Chargers at home, who, like we said,
I think for Buffalo, Mike, the story is, can they pass these zombie Chargers who are just winning games, pulling stuff out of their rear end with Herbert? It looks like the guy is a zombie. Like, I don't understand how they're doing this. He's not Justin Herbert. Like, even his biggest haters can't say anything right now because it's, like, so obvious he's not healthy whatsoever.
We said it off camera. I was like, how do the Chargers win these games again?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you got to give credit to the guy who's out there. He's getting pressured like 70% of his dropbacks, and he's just standing in there delivering once in a while a Justin Herbert-esque throw, and that seemingly is the difference. If Buffalo is able to pass the Chargers for that 5 seed,
Huge
they
5 seed.
probably get a date with Pittsburgh, which would be a dramatic plus for
You want
Buffalo.
that.
That's what you want. You
You
want
want
Mike
that.
Tomlin in
Yes.
the wild card round. And then after that, you might get New England again, round 3, and you probably feel decent about that if you're Buffalo after today. You might have got in the mind of New England just a little tiny bit. I think if the matchups were reversed, if New England lost on a walk-off field goal in Buffalo earlier this year, but were able to come back, basically they just flipped the
The
games,
results, yeah.
that would be a dramatic swing in New England's favor. But the way the schedule worked out and the way everything happened here, I think Buffalo has to feel really good about how things went. So even though they might not be able to win the AFC East, I still think they
Yeah,
have the
well
kind
played.
of swagger advantage. They have that veteran wherewithal.
Well, you
I
just
think
said it.
New England might be a year away.
Well, here's the thing. Would winning the AFC East, of course, it'd be huge. You want to host at least 2 playoff games. I totally get that. But if you're the 5 seed, you have a path of Pittsburgh and then possibly New England again. I mean, that's not the worst
If
path.
there's nothing better for Buffalo than winning the AFC East, but if you're not going to win the AFC East,
You want to be
being the 5 seed and getting Pittsburgh and New England is probably exactly what you want. And then Denver could probably either get like a I don't even know who Denver would get.
Houston or
So
Jacksonville. I mean,
it'd probably be Houston. I think we'd have to
yeah,
assume.
Houston, Jacksonville, Chargers might be the first round match. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
very long.
it'd be weird. They could also play Denver, which you wouldn't want. So there's a lot on the table. We're kind of looking too far ahead. But yeah, I still think Buffalo, they have to feel pretty good about things. But you know who has to feel really good? The MVP of the league, because I'm calling it. The
Yeah, it's
votes
over.
are in. It's over. The judge has hit his gavel.
Wait.
Matthew-
Myles Garrett, hang on. He has one more sack to break the record. And no, nothing.
No. The verdict's in. Sorry, juror. I don't know why you're screaming at me here. The verdict's already been in. I
Never
have the
done.
envelope. Your 2025 NFL Most Valuable Player winner is Matthew Stafford, who
Unbelievable.
finally, after years of being a will he or won't he Canton guy, undeniable, is going to be a Hall of Famer.
100%.
He is established now as one of the best quarterbacks of his generation. Matthew Stafford, it's not just a career legacy award anymore. This is the best quarterback in the sport by a decent enough margin. He just totally kicked the you-know-what out of his former team today in the Detroit Lions. He
Again.
was unbelievable. And Puka got a little banged up today. Devontae Adams got a little banged up today. It didn't matter if it was Colby Parkinson, Terrence Ferguson, Tutu Atwell, Puka Nacua. It didn't matter who he was throwing to. Matthew Stafford was on one today, and he was just clinical. The Rams right now, are they the favorites to win the title? Because to me, when I watch them, it's the Rams and it's everybody else.
Yeah. They're making the sport look easy. I mean, how many times do they have to drop 40 every week now? It's like, it could be Colby Parkinson, it could be Blake Corum, it could be Tutu Atwell. Mumfield, the rookie out of Pittsburgh, is making plays. I mean, they have backups beyond the they're just getting production from everywhere. I mean, it looks like McVay and Stafford are playing the game on rookie mode right now, and they're just picking apart. And again, I know Detroit's defense has been banged up and has not been good the last month and a half. But nonetheless, the Rams are doing this to everybody. I mean, they're just going up and down the field. It feels like this is Stafford's MVP to lose at this point. I mean, you're already calling it. So I mean,
it's over. It's not an MVP to lose.
But
he could get hurt tomorrow. He'd still be the MVP. This is not close. I love Drake May, and he's looking at property in MVP neighborhood for sure. But it's over.
You think Stafford can afford 2 out of these last 3 games? He can put up a couple stinkers, and it doesn't really matter.
Unless May goes 3-0 with like 12 touchdowns and no interceptions, and Stafford loses 2 of these next 3, it's over. It doesn't matter, even if they lose some games, as long as Stafford's not the reason they lose, which he just simply hasn't been.
No.
It's just not going to happen. And there was this great piece from The Athletic the other day that they put out on some of their social platforms. It basically talks about how May fits the MVP mold a lot more than Stafford because of May's age and his quarterback rating and his advanced metrics. May is the traditional NFL MVP. Stafford doesn't quite hit those marks despite the daunting touchdown-interception ratio. The Pats have just ran the ball quite a bit more in the red zone area compared to LA, and LA's a better offense as well.
Right.
So there's that end to it. But I think visually, when you just watch these games, even with the talent that the Rams have, it's just obvious that Matt, even as a stationary guy with his legs not being a threat, which is honestly supposed to hurt his MVP case because he's not like doing it in all phases. I get all that. But because he is a little bit limited, especially because of his age, I think that makes it more impressive. Even though what May's doing at his age is historic and he's been phenomenal, and today, like, there wasn't a ton he could have done. He should have been better than he was, but I don't think May's game was, like, disastrous. I
No.
don't think the way the wide receivers played today, if I don't know who could have been the Pats quarterback and won today. That's all I'm saying, at least late in that game to
Yeah.
maintain that lead, right?
Yeah.
Stafford is just, he's operating at such a level. He just makes it look so easy. And
He's
even
playing
in
our
his losses, he looked terrible in the Carolina game, sure. Besides that, he had one bad game all year. He's just been clinical throughout. And I think he's going to win the division. I think the NFC West is going to be in Los Angeles. I think he's going to be the 1 seed. And I just don't really see any of these teams knocking him off in the postseason, because even last year, and we bring this up all the time, that offensive line was so decimated, and Stafford was clearly hampered because of it. They went into Philly and
a
were
blizzard.
11 yards away from beating Philadelphia,
In a
who
blizzard with-
demolished Kansas City in the Super Bowl, by the
By
way.
the way, Eck, they were 11 yards away from winning that game in a blizzard with backups on the offensive line.
Yes,
Through
yes. And
miscommunication
a
on that.
slightly injured Stafford. You could mention
Yeah.
all of that. Yes, they were 11 yards away from that. So,
And Kyron fumbled twice.
yeah,
Fumbled twice.
and Saquon was superhuman. Everything went wrong for the Rams throughout that game, and they're still 11 yards away from winning it. So it was just an unbelievable effort. You got to figure this year they're healthier across the board, knock on wood, right? And I think Blake Corum being a backup has been huge for them. He's been really good the last few weeks. So now they kind of have a two-headed monster in the backfield. This kind of tight end by committee thing has worked really well for them, whether it's Kobe Parkinson or Davis Allen or Terrence Ferguson. One of these guys is doing something each week. They just have enough. Devontae Adams, not to mention him, right? They just have enough.
Yeah, his hamstring kind of given out, but we don't. He's had hamstring problems in the past. That's kind of
he's had a lot of hamstring problems. I'm just going to assume he's fine, which you can't. But just for the sake of talking about this right now, I think they have enough.
Yeah, the one thing I would say here in terms of did he secure the MVP award, if he hasn't already, Thursday night, short weeks. That's why I would put maybe an asterisk on Devontae Adams. Short week Thursday night in Seattle for the 1 seed. If he hasn't locked it up already, if they win that game in Seattle and Stafford's good, which we assume he will be, that it's over. Go ahead and put the trophy case in his room. It's wraps, because that would be a win in Seattle, a sweep of the Seahawks, and the 1 seed by far. With 2 games to go, they could even sit him the last week and it'd be over. So,
well, if I'm Stafford, I'm feeling okay about going into Seattle. You want to know why? Because 44-year-old Philip Rivers just went into Seattle and almost beat the Seahawks. And we really went in on Indianapolis last week, where we were just honing in on the fact that this is embarrassing that they trotted this guy out there. And today, he was an embarrassment. He was embarrassing, okay? He was embarrassing. Maybe in the moment, because it was so surreal, you didn't realize how embarrassing he was. He was embarrassing. Mike, do you know his line? Do you know it off the top of your head?
It wasn't a good line. It was sub 50%. It wasn't good.
Can you give me what you think it is?
I think it was about 13 to 27, 118 yards.
Okay. No.
Around there? No?
It was 120 yards. He had a 66% completion percentage, which is way higher than you thought.
I know.
Touchdown and an interception. A 73 quarterback rating. And people will say, that's not that bad, right? Here's the problem. He attempted one pass that felt like it went over more than 12 yards in the air, and it was intercepted at the end of the game. Okay? He couldn't push the ball more than 10 yards down the field, and his arm looked like a pool noodle. The ball was coming out in comical fashion, and we said off air, if Riley Leonard played this game, I'm pretty sure Indy would have won. If they just had we'll call it D plus backup quarterback. They probably beat Seattle today. Seattle specifically offensively wasn't that good. And the defense was fine, I guess, but they didn't figure out that Rivers couldn't push the ball downfield. They didn't need a safety down the field. They could have played everyone up. They should have put every single person on the team within the box. There was no reason not to, and they would have won easily. They would have forced more turnovers. He couldn't have been able to check the ball down whatsoever. So this Phillip Rivers thing, it just irks me because it is so obvious that if they just took this somewhat seriously, Indy didn't really have a run in the postseason because of their schedule. So it doesn't really matter
Right.
who was playing quarterback for them. If it wasn't someone
It's
actually
gauntlet.
good, they didn't really have a chance. But the fact that it feels like they just punted on what at one point was a magical season, that kind of upsets me because they were getting all this praise about how they were doing things differently. They were on the cutting edge of kind of changing the way roster building is concerned, partly because of Carly Ursay. She's on the sidelines. She's asking what the plays are and trying to figure out if these plays actually work. Isn't this awesome? She's a hands-on owner. All this stuff we heard early in the year just for when Anthony Richardson gets hurt, they don't really look at another quarterback to add to the roster. It's just Riley Leonard. And then when he gets banged up, the next phone call is 44-year-old Phillip Rivers. It's a total joke. He was better than I thought he would be, but make no mistake, he was embarrassing today. Look, I know you're higher on it than I am, and I think part of that is the nostalgia of Rivers, and I think part of that is just kind of the absurdity of the whole situation. But I think if you look at it objectively, this is just terrible. And you are suggesting that perhaps this was just Seattle looking ahead?
I'm not saying it was Seattle looking ahead, possibly. But I'm saying that my bar of what I thought Phillip Rivers would be, he exceeded the bar. I had such low expectations for how this was
He
going.
didn't get folded in half or leave on a stretcher, so I guess that's a
That
little
was
bit
my
better than
thought.
I
I thought it
suspected.
would be. I thought it might be like Kendall Hilton or Kendall. It was, remember that game where Denver's literally couldn't put
Yes,
a
the
quarterback
Wake
on the field?
Forest product. Look, that guy couldn't throw a spiral, so I didn't think it would be that bad. But
Okay, but I thought at this point I hadn't seen Phillip Rivers play in a game in 5 years, and what I know about the sport, I couldn't comprehend somebody getting off the couch and being able to push the ball downfield with receivers he hasn't thrown to in less than 4 days.
well, he
That's what
couldn't do that.
I understand, but it wasn't a total disaster. I mean, we've seen total disasters happen, and I'm gonna go 2 weeks ago, not long in the rearview mirror here,
No.
where Minnesota had 2 guys banged up at quarterback. I believe it was Carson Wentz and JJ McCarthy, and their third, not a phone call, but their third string quarterback who they've had in the building since May, similar to Riley Leonard, was Max Brosmer. And they said, he's been in the offense the entire time. He knows the system. Let's throw him out here against Seattle and see how it does. That was a total, disaster.
No.
That was awful. So Phillip Rivers at least exceeded that. I'm not saying Riley Leonard would have been Max Brosmer, but I'm saying if you just picked up a random quarterback who doesn't know the offense, there's a world where it looked like what Max Brosmer looked like 2 weeks ago. So it wasn't the worst case scenario is what I'm going to say here. It wasn't the total doomsday scenario, which I envisioned heading in. I thought Seattle minus 13.5. There's no way this game is close. There's no way Phillip Rivers does anything besides complete screens. He had some, there was some plays. I'm like, okay, there's some wiggle there. I mean, look, he took a hit after one of the throws in the middle of the field where he completed it to, I believe, Abdullah. It was 5-yard pass, but I mean, he took a lick afterwards, got up and was saying dadgummit. It was like, oh, that's Phillip Rivers. I was like, I remember him. He played 5 years ago. That's what he was doing 5 years ago. So there was a little bit of like, okay, it's sort of working, and they were winning.
It was a Make-A-Wish type situation
no.
tonight.
I thought it was a. So you thought it was Make-A-Wish. I thought it was more Hallmark movie. I was like, okay, this is like
whatever you want to call it.
It's a movie.
It was a gimmick, and it was embarrassing not only for the Colts, for the NFL. I can't believe the NFL didn't step in here. I can't believe Roger Goodell didn't call the Ursay girls and said, hey, knock this off. This is embarrassing for the league because the only thing that can happen here is Phillip Rivers beats a team in contention for the 1 seed. That's embarrassing at 44 years old, coming off the couch, coaching his son's high school football team. So that could happen. Or he gets folded in half and leaves in a body bag. And I guess it was a good scenario because neither happened, despite them leading with under a minute to go. Rivers did leave Lumen Field in one piece, and he didn't totally
he got him in a
embarrass
field goal
himself.
range with 45 seconds to go.
Yeah, so, there's that, I suppose, but
On a back shoulder throw to Alec Pierce for like
it's the
20 yards.
fact that he could only throw within 10 yards. It's the fact that most of his throws were drag routes, it felt like, or out routes, or just breaking routes that everyone had separation on. It didn't have to find any windows, really.
Well, but I will say though, with the game speed that he hasn't seen in 5 years, he was getting to the check down awfully quick, which is good. Some guys never get to the check down.
Well, he knew that's all he had.
Right,
I
but
think that's
some
why he was getting
rookie-
there pretty
no,
quick.
no. But my thing is, at least he's a veteran enough. I mean, again, he's 44 years old, for God's sakes. But some rookies hold on to the ball so long, they never get to the check down.
I'll give him credit for this. He knew his
has a brain.
limitations. He was smart enough to understand
Get the
he
ball in my
can't
hand.
throw 20 yards down the field anymore.
It was
That's not
heck.
plausible.
It was hot potato. He was like, okay, let me get the ball in my hands. Because he knows of course, he's like, where's my check down? They probably can make a guy miss more than I can. Let me just get the ball. So at least he was doing that. It wasn't like he was a total inept, couldn't move, and couldn't get the ball out of his hands. He's
He
just a
couldn't really move, but yeah.
No, I know he could move. I'm saying the world I was envisioning is he couldn't move and he couldn't even get the ball out of his hands. He was going to get killed out there. I thought he was literally going to get crushed. I literally thought, oh my gosh, Phillip Rivers will not make it out of this game alive. And he did. He made it out in one piece, and he was, he had some moments. He had a touchdown pass, which I also did not see coming. So I took the under on that. So, I mean, again, I'm pleasantly surprised with how it went. He made it out in one piece. They lost by 2. He was in the game. And, it was a pretty safe, relatively safe game script. They kept it pretty vanilla for him, and that is probably the best case scenario, because either one thing could have happened. He beats the possible number 1 seed in the NFC, which is a fantastic story, probably makes a Hallmark movie one day, and probably they'll make a 30 for 30 about it, or he leaves on a stretcher. Thankfully, neither of those 2 things happened. He made it out in one piece, and it was not a total disaster. It wasn't even the worst quarterback performance in Lumen Field in the last 3 weeks. So that is all positives that I will take, and you will obviously focus on the negative side.
Does he play again?
Next game for them is next Monday Night Football against the Niners. I believe he'll have 8 days off to get ready for that Niners team at home. And it'll be a nice homecoming for him to play in Lucas Oil Stadium. Yeah, he will play. He will play. Yes. I think he will play again. I do.
Okay.
I don't think it was a one-off. I really don't.
Do you think he makes it to the Houston defense? Do you think they throw him out there against that defense? Because Seattle's defense is good, but not in the same way Houston's is, where they're kind of punching you in the mouth the whole time.
But here's why he won't make it to Houston, because that is week 18, I believe. That's the season finale. The Colts will be out by then, and at that point, they'll be like, hey, maybe we should see what we have in Riley Leonard. Then I think it'll click big. Okay, Phil, that was a nice 3 games. Let's go to Riley Leonard. We're eliminated. We are not playing for anything, because they will lose an extra game. Make no mistake. They will lose.
So you'd rather throw in the rookie who's been hurt rather than the old man who inevitably would get hurt in that game?
I mean, wait, so you want to play him week 18 against Houston?
I don't want to play him at all. I think it's embarrassing. I'm just saying, if you're going to do it, if you're going to play this charade,
you're going to run this risk. Of
why not just run it out? If he gets hurt, that's his own fault. Look, I love Phillip Rivers. If he got hurt today, the only person I'm blaming is Phillip Rivers. That's it.
That's the only person you're not going to blame.
I'm blaming Phillip Rivers, and I'm blaming Roger Goodell. Well, I'm blaming more than Phillip Rivers, I guess. I'm blaming Phillip Rivers, I'm blaming Roger Goodell, and I'm blaming the entire Indianapolis Colts organization.
Yes.
But more than anything, I'm blaming Phillip Rivers for even thinking that he should be out on the field. I think it's insane. I appreciate how much he loves football. I do.
He clearly so loves it.
Oh my God. Just enjoy retirement. Enjoy retirement. There's no need for this. There is no need for this. You can love football and also understand your days are behind you.
100%. I mean, to be fair, last year around this time, or in the wild card round, I believe, we saw a guy who was coaching high school football say, you know what, I'm going to get back in the league. I have an interest to get back in the league.
At least that guy was a lot younger.
Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater had taken a step away for about a year and a half, and he came back for the Lions. And, Goff got hurt in that playoff game, and Bridgewater had to,
and was drafted about a decade after Rivers as well.
Totally agree, but I'm just saying, he didn't look totally out of. I mean, he looked out of place for sure, but he didn't look like he didn't belong on the field like Max Brosmer did 2 weeks ago. So I mean, again, it was
he
the worst
looked
thing
like he didn't belong on the field, but he didn't look like he was the worst football player I've ever seen. Which Brosmer is in contention for.
Yes, he did not Nathan Peterman it up. He did not Max Brosmer it up, and that is overall a positive sign. I think it could have gone much worse. So we should take. It's like watching a bad TV show. It's like, well, at least the acting, I mean, you got to find the positives out of what is overall not a great.
It was the morning show. The acting was bad. I couldn't stop watching it. That's
that happens sometimes. It was like
that's Phillip Rivers in 2025. It is so ridiculous. You have to watch.
By the way, you will be watching Phillip Rivers against the Niners next Monday night, I believe, right?
I think so. I mean, you weren't even sure he was going to play this weekend. I kept telling you there's no reason they signed him other than to play him.
Well, you're interested in watching him on Monday Night Football, right? You want to watch it.
We'll have to hear more this week because there's some propaganda being thrown around today that the ball didn't hit the ground in practice this week? I disagree based off what I saw today. Um, yeah, we'll see what the vibes are. I think we'll get a good grasp of what's going on next Monday night. Mike, I want to spend some serious time on this next topic because Cincinnati was eliminated from the playoffs, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, but this feels like a franchise in flux. So, just for some background, the ownership is probably the worst in the league. Their stadium and infrastructure is probably the worst in the league. Their practice field and all their amenities for players and whatnot is probably
Disaster.
the worst in the league.
Easily.
And then you have a star quarterback who you've been unable to kind of supplement with talent on the offensive line and defensively. But part of that also is kind of on the quarterback for not understanding you're only allowed one amazing wide receiver that you have to pay. The rest of the money should probably go help with the rest of the roster. But you threw a hissy fit, so they were forced to pay that guy. And now you're wondering why the rest of the roster isn't up to stuff. So regardless, there are so many moving parts in Cincinnati, but one thing is clear, that Burrow is a mess. And whether it's because he's checked out or because these injuries, these between season ending and nagging injuries that have plagued his entire career, whether they've caught up to him, it's kind of hard to tell. It's probably a mix of both, if we're being totally honest. But regardless, Cincinnati looked like they would be in position to at least be a fun, kind of win with shootouts and see where you get with that kind of
What they
team
were
this
last year.
year.
They were
Yeah,
last
what they
year,
were
yeah.
last year, if not even a little bit better. And if you were told the way the AFC was shaped out, you would definitely think they'd be even better, particularly their own division. The AFC North has just been a disaster. Is Burrow on the team next year?
Ooh.
If you had to bet on it right now, week one, is Joe Burrow the Bengals starting quarterback next year?
I would lean yes, just because I think the teams that they'd have to trade him to, it would be, I mean, yeah, it'd be similar. I don't know. I would lean yes because I don't think the Bengals want to give this up real quick. I mean, they have the injury excuse once again this year of Burrow missing 7 to 8 games or more than that actually. 9 games. So they were 1-8 in his absence. But yeah, I mean, I think the Bengals will want to, if they can, keep him. Obviously, I mean, they're not going to trade him unless he's demanding out of there. I mean, I think we agree that he's not leaving Cincinnati unless he wants to leave Cincinnati. They're not going to just trade away their in their prime quarterback. Like they wouldn't. I wouldn't assume they would.
99% of me says yes. If I had to choose the 1% of franchises that would do this, Cincinnati is on the short list.
We
But
had
I
seen,
mostly agree with you.
well, we seen Carson Palmer about 15 years ago, similarly won out of Cincinnati.
Well, hold on. Came off a major injury, sure, but it was very obvious that Palmer just didn't have the juice anymore. Not at the same extent that he had
Well,
when he was drafted out of USC. In Burrow, I know you're going to say that it's similar right now, but I think even last week's performance for 2.5 hours against Buffalo was kind of better than anything Palmer was doing
no, no,
after
no,
that.
no. My point was that Palmer ends up shaping out a pretty darn good career after Cincinnati. He famously makes a
Yeah, I
NFC
mean,
championship
he has a
with the
bad
Cardinals.
he has an okay run in Oakland. It starts bad. He kind of figures out a little bit, and then
But
he
then
goes
in
to Arizona. He has
Arizona,
a short renaissance. It's not like it's long. It's a short
no,
renaissance, but
no, but it's
regardless.
like if you told me after Cincinnati he would then play a decade later and make an NFC championship game and make an NFC divisional round with Bruce Arians, that would be more than like if you were Joe Burrow
Yeah.
right now and you said the next decade for you after you leave Cincinnati, you will have success other places. That would be not. I mean, I think we both agree Burrow's better than Carson Palmer. Certainly
Yeah,
when they
100%.
yeah, 100%. This might be this is what I'm saying. This might be a Bengals specifically issue. You mentioned you laid out all the things of the Bengals franchise being kind of inept. If this is a Bengals issue, because we've seen it happen with quarterbacks in the past, where they just can't build a winner, then maybe Burrow's not on the team next year, or at least in the foreseeable future. Because, and again, Burrow was a mess today. Chase was also a mess today. The offensive line was a mess today. Everyone was a mess today for the Bengals. The Bengals looked awful from jump, really. I mean, it was Burrow. The first drive of the Bengals, Chase had 2 drops. Then he lost one in the sky on the next drive. They're not doing anything well. Burrow then missed Yochivas. It was no one was good for Cincinnati. They got blanked. They scored 0 points. 2 weeks after they went into Baltimore and scored 35 points. So the Bengals certainly looked lost. The comments from Burrow last week won't help any of this, obviously. This will be further explanation that they just checked out. They obviously just got eliminated now, a week before Christmas. At least last year they made a heroic end of the year, won 5 in a row to end the season. Looked like, okay, they can run back this exact same formula. But for the Bengals, where do they go now? I mean,
Can I give you some potential destinations?
please.
Minnesota.
That was
If
yeah.
Minnesota offered McCarthy and some firsts, that could get it done. And then here's some.
Do that.
I think Cincinnati, if he asked out and was adamant he was not going to play another snap with them, yeah, I think they'd have to do that. I think it's better than anything else you get because the other teams you're looking at is Las Vegas. That'd be all picks. You wouldn't get a player back in that, presumably. So that wouldn't
No.
be great. Same with a Cleveland, and you would never do it in division. So you'd have to throw them
Pittsburgh,
out.
same thing. They would never do it in division.
They would never do it in division. Nope. So pretty much those like obvious AFC North teams that could use a quarterback to really change their fortunes, they're just not doing it with. The
By the way, the
Jets, it
Jets
wouldn't be
have
an
3
upgrade
firsts.
because I've
No,
heard
yeah.
that a lot, Mike. I've heard the
They have
Jets
the
a
most picks.
lot.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for them. I know they have a lot of picks, but they don't have a. I think in this kind of deal, you want a player back, right? You want something of value. You don't want just the picks, unless it's just a whole war chest. It's like we're gonna offer you like 5 firsts. Maybe you do to that point, but if you're Burrow, you're probably saying no to that because
But why
then
would the
you're
Jets
not a
do
better.
that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Why
if
would the
they give all
Jets
their
do it?
picks.
Why would Burrow do it? Doesn't make
Right. Why
sense.
would Burrow willingly go to a team that just give up everything to get me to go in a worse position right now? Like now I have one less awesome receiver. I have an equally inept offensive line, and I have a defense that sold off all their parts. With
Can I
Sauce
give
Gardner.
you one that's interesting, but I don't think it works? The Cardinals. Okay. Because I think the defense is a few pieces away from being super frisky. I think Michael Wilson's really good. I think he's proven that,
When
right?
Marvin Harrison does not play, there might not be a better receiver in the league than Michael Wilson. When Marvin Harrison
No,
does not play.
and you have Marvin Harrison if you want to trade him. If you're sick of Michael Wilson being held back, you have Marvin Harrison as trade bait. You have enough running backs that seemingly can carry the ball. Like Trey Benson's pretty good when he's actually healthy. Michael Carter and Bam Knight have shown a little something, but you can get a higher end guy. Okay, you have Trey McBride at tight end. He's been phenomenal. So you have something there that could be similar, if not a slight upgrade. You're in a warm climate. You're not in Cincinnati. Okay. So maybe. I don't know.
You know what the wild one is though, and you're gonna immediately debunk this as you should. If they go on to win the Super Bowl this year and Stafford says I'm done, the Rams have that Falcons pick this year.
I'm not debunking it because I thought of it when you were talking about it.
Yeah, the Rams can say, "Hey, we have 2 firsts. We have a top 10 pick, which the Falcons will pick in the top 10. If you're Cincinnati, hey, you're gonna get 2 picks in this draft, and the Rams are gonna give you the treasure chest of picks." You know, obviously they famously said, "We don't care about the picks. F them picks. We will give them away. We don't need the firsts because we can make hay in the 3rd and 4th round." If you're the Rams and Stafford goes out on top, would you just be like, "Hey, we can just trade for Burrow in his primer now and kind of keep this thing going?" And if you're Burrow, why would you not want to go to Los Angeles?
I wouldn't do that if I was the Rams, only because of Burrow's injury history. I think they have
Right.
such a win now core. I'd want someone a little bit
Stable.
more stable than Burrow. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but
'Cause I
it's
think
the
he's on a short.
truth.
Well, here's the thing. I think he's on a short list of the 5 or 6 best quarterbacks in football. But yes, the injury, like he's
When
actually
he's fully healthy, it's Mahomes, it's Allen, and then he's at least in the convo for third. Whether
when
you
he,
think he is or not is irrelevant. He's in the
well,
conversation.
yeah, when he's healthy, I think him and Lamar, you can take your pick which Sunday. You know, he's not like he's actually more injury prone than Tua. My quarterback is. People think Tua is the most injury prone guy in that draft class. Tua's missed more games than Tua has. Tua's had the concussions. Burrow's had everything. Burrow's had the ACL in his rookie year. He's had the wrist injury his 4th year. He's had now the ankle injury this year, the foot injury, the turf toe. He's had a bunch of things that has kept him from playing all these football games. So yeah, I think for the Rams it'd be a risk, but the Rams are not a franchise that really cares about risk. They care about reward. So I wouldn't rule it off, is what I'm saying.
If you were Burrow, and let's take the Rams out of it. If you were Burrow, of the like mid to bad teams, where are you circling? Where are you trying to get yourself to?
Well, is Minnesota a mid to bad team? I mean, they won 15 games last year or 14 games last year.
They're a bad team right now, so I think they count.
5-9. Yeah, they're a bad team right now. So that would be the team I'm trying to get to. I think that's
You go trying to link up with Kevin O'Connell, your
Yes,
other
Justin
college
Jefferson.
teammate, and Justin Jefferson.
Yes, Brian Flores, assumingly does not get a head coaching job. He's still there, defensive coordinator in the Vikings defense. I would want to.
He might get some interviews this year, but I feel like last year was the year he was a hot commodity. This year, it's still a good defense, but not the same.
Not the same, exactly right. They did lose some pieces in free agency too. But the offensive line, I think, is a little bit better at this time than it was. Remember last year, they lost Darisaw. They were losing back in the offensive line.
Yeah.
They're kind of retooling this offensive line. So if you were to walk into right now Minnesota, it would not be the worst scenario right now. Out of the mid to bad teams, you're getting a Kevin O'Connell. You're getting a stable offensive line that's better than it was last year at this time. And you're getting a defense in Brian Flores that knows what he's doing. I mean, so I would say
I think Jordan Mason's still pretty good. Hawkinson's still there. We didn't mention Addison. You have plenty of pieces there that you could do a little bit of something. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I'd be worried again
It's a little
injury
bit more,
prone,
yeah, but it's a lot like example, Cincinnati's a very cheap organization. Minnesota's willing to go out and get you pieces. It'd be like a fun, like you still have an LSU receiver there, you still have an offensive head coach there. It just feels like more upgrades than it's a team that's willing to spend. I don't think Cincinnati's willing to spend. I mean, they're willing to spend on T. Higgins and Jamar Chase to keep Burrow happy, but they're not really willing to spend on a winning roster. I think Minnesota is more equipped to build a winning roster. Cincinnati spends money in places where I'm like, why would you spend money there? And again, they've tried. It just feels like the Bengals don't really know what they're doing as a franchise. That could go into, they don't ever get the best coaches in the head coaching searches. They don't want to spend the money on the best head coaches candidates. They don't want to spend the best money on whatever, for example. But the way they handle the Trey Hendrickson situation, we can talk about all day about what the Bengals have done in the last decade or plus. But I think Minnesota would be a really, really fun one because I think they would be willing to build a legit roster in the NFC that could cater Burrow.
Where do you think Cincinnati would go if Burrow left? Do you think that just everyone asks out and the bottom falls underneath? Because I feel like that's kind of where we're heading. That's what
That
it
would be the more
feels
likely.
like right now.
Yeah, that would be the more likely. I mean, what the alternative is, they still believe they're a very solid roster that can win 8 or 9 games in this pretty bad division. I mean, what's the future of the AFC North right now? I mean, Pittsburgh is still going to go 9-8 probably, like they do every year. Maybe till the end of the time until Mike Tomlin eventually leaves. Harbaugh, if the Ravens miss the playoffs, they want him out of there. So you could have another new coach in Baltimore. I don't know if that's that legit, but Cleveland might fire their head coach again. So you have all kind of around you. There's been reports of Tomlin wants to leave Pittsburgh. We don't know if those are true or not, but those are just leaks. Harbaugh, the Ravens have been the most underperforming team in football this year, aside from the Chiefs, who are just bad. The Ravens have been underperforming. The Chiefs are bad. The Ravens, we thought were preseason Super Bowl favorites. They are not as good as we thought they were. And then obviously Cleveland is Cleveland. So if you're Cincinnati, the other avenue you could look at is, hey, could we maybe go from a Burrow to not someone of Joe Burrow's caliber? Can we still get a consistent guy in the room and not have the bottom fall out? I would lean more towards what you think. I think the
Yeah,
bottom would fall out.
maybe if you got Burrow and Higgins off the books, you would have
You
enough
get the roster.
money to kind of squeeze a lot of holes around the roster. Again,
But do you
Cincinnati.
have faith? But do you have faith in Cincinnati actually plugging those holes?
No, I think they're one of the worst organizations in sports, which has kind of been clouded the last few years because they have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in particular.
Yeah, exactly right. No, I think that it's more likely that the bottom would fall out and everyone would ask out. That would be my guess. It's like they have a situation where it's like Jamar Chase is like demanding out and they trade him and they get a bunch of value. Like they can get value for these guys. They have good players. They have some good players at key positions that they could do. But if this goes south and he's not on the roster next year, I think it's more likely the bottom would fall out. But my guess today, if you were to ask me, was that they keep him on the team next year because they believe that they're good enough to win. What right or wrong? Whether I think they think that.
I think if he didn't pose them an ultimatum, there was no reason why they'd ever consider moving him. I think it'd have to be purely Burrow. I think you'd have to slander them in the media. And I think he's already kind of laying the foundation for that to happen if he wants to go that route.
Some breadcrumbs.
It's an NBA move. We don't really see it in football, particularly from someone of Joe Burrow's caliber at the quarterback position. But if it were to happen, it would be really fun because all of a sudden then you'd really have a quarterback sweepstakes. And the closest thing we had to that was Lamar, but it seemed like no one wanted him, which was really strange at the time.
When we had 4 teams jockeying for Deshaun Watson at that time, but that was the Texans had to trade him for, I forget what it was, but it was Carolina, Atlanta, New Orleans, and Cleveland all interviewing or all meeting with Deshaun, like actively.
Yeah, and some of those teams dropped out at the end, so then it kind of became condensed. But no, that's another good one. I just think Lamar was a different caliber, and that's why I brought him up. I remember it was like only Atlanta seemed that interested or something like that, where no other team was really doing their due diligence because they just assumed Baltimore was just going to blow everyone out. But they should have at least tried, I would say. Same here. Maybe a team like Minnesota can offer something no one else can, a former top 10 pick at quarterback and then a few firsts. That's a great package, if you will, especially if they're into J.
Yeah, that was when I think Miami was kicking the tires on whether Tua was good or not. That was like the year 2 of like, I think he had the cracked ribs and they were kicking the tires into Deshaun, and then the Lamar thing happened around the same time. But that we haven't seen something like that to that level. If Burrow legitimately gave them an ultimatum and pulled that move, that would be I want to see the sweepstakes. That would be legit. Like, okay, who's in this race? I want to see who's in this race. And is it like, hopefully not just the bad team. Like,
I think it'd be double-digit teams.
Yeah, I think oh my gosh, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I think it would be. I think it'd be more teams than just the ones that we mentioned. Obviously, we mentioned like 5 or 6, but there'd probably be a few more that would just throw their hat in the ring.
Like New Orleans would be thrown out
I
there.
was just gonna say New Orleans, like, hey, he played at Louisiana.
Right. There'd
Yeah,
be some ones that like Indy even. Like Indy's begging to find a
Indy,
quarterback. Would
please,
they use all the ammo they have left, which
and they
isn't
can
that
use.
much, but
Well, they don't have much. They can use the excuse of, hey, Jones just towards Achilles. This was a Super Bowl winning roster. We are that close. They can use that excuse if they really want to be like, hey, we can go get Burrow and be right at the top of the line here of short list of AFC contenders. And I again, you're gonna laugh at me, but I said this a couple weeks ago. Whenever we were like, hey, what is the Goff Stafford trade here in the next few years? If we were to get a redo of a Goff Stafford trade, and my closest comparison I could find is say Denver makes the Super Bowl and Bo Nix just lays a complete egg. Maybe loses, I don't know, 13-3. I don't know. We've seen that happen before. They get back in the playoffs a couple years later and he's not good again. Sean Payton says, I'm really close here. I got a good defense. Do I go ahead and, trade for Joe Burrow at age 34, 35, whatever they traded for Stafford is, whatever that age was. I don't know. I mean, again, I know you're going to laugh. I said,
what?
I prefaced this before I said it. You're gonna debunk it immediately, but hey, it's a comparison. If Bo Nix is bad in the playoffs, and Sean Payton, a former Super Bowl winning head coach, believes he can win with a better veteran quarterback, and Burrow's still in the market, I don't know, a couple of years from now, I don't know, maybe. I just want to see it play out. I'm just throwing it's a hypothetical. I mean, we're going down hypotheticals at this point. We're just spitballing here.
What about Dak for Burrow?
$60 million for $60 million. Okay, your problem for my problem. Both of our defenses suck. Okay, what does that do?
Yeah. Nothing, but
It does absolutely nothing for Cincinnati or
I think
Dallas.
that's closer to a Stafford Goff trade. I think the
Really?
age is yeah, for sure.
You think Dallas is close? Dallas isn't close at all.
I think Dallas is closer than people are giving him credit for.
Okay,
No, I do.
so I really don't. You know what I do think is close? Philadelphia. They just won last year. If Cincinnati called you and said, hey, well,
You
Cincinnati
don't
won.
think Dallas, if they were able to create some salary, get a few, like 2 good players on defense, you don't think they'd be close? That offense is so good, Mike. It is so good. They don't
Okay,
need a great defense. They just need an average defense. And they look
so
like
how
they're
do you
closer to that week in and week out. I know right now they've allowed 17 points because I have it over here on the
I do
corner.
too. Yeah, I do too.
Uh,
I don't think they're
y-
close at all. I really don't. I
Wow, you don't.
no. Well,
This
here's the thing.
offense is so gross,
I
though.
love watching their offense. You know why their offense is really good? They have a $60 million quarterback. You know what that means? You can't build the rest of your roster the way you want it to if you have a $60 million
Yeah,
cap on
true.
your team. So they can't really financially, with a quarterback of that cap hit, build the most, like again, I think Philadelphia, if somehow Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia is a sports organization
Mm,
that is they are not afraid to move off of Super Bowl winning head coaches and Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. They've shown that they do that already. So if Hurts has some kind of falling out where it's like, hey, this is what he is, guys. Yeah, you want to win another Super Bowl? Not gonna happen here unless you go out and make an aggressive move. I think that's a team that's closer than Dallas is
I
right now.
mean, the reporters in Philly seemingly already on that. This week, one of the reporters asked basically about benching Jalen Hurts, and he technically was today, but it was because he
Right.
was up by so much.
They
But
were up by so much, yeah.
I
The
think you're
QB
onto
thing.
something with the Hurts thing because he is, and I'm not going to get into it, but he's just not where he's supposed to be right now. And I think this is closer to the guy that I saw coming out of Oklahoma, where he is physically really gifted and he can hit some wide open guys. But if you want him to do anything more than that, he's super limited. But when you have by far the best roster in the league, which is what Philly's had the last few years, I guess you can win with that kind of guy, which
That's what I'm saying.
I
It's really impressive.
previously didn't really think you could, but apparently you can. If the roster's that good, you can do that.
Yeah, the recent stretch we've seen from Jalen Hurts, just kind of for us, I think we both agree, really impressive that they won a Super Bowl with him. I mean, that's gonna be one of those. I think it's gonna age 20 years from now. Like, hey, you know who won a Super Bowl? Jalen Hurts won a Super Bowl with
He's
that.
not of like the obvious first names you
Not Trent
go
Dilfer.
to, which is
No, I know
like Peyton,
Trent
his,
Dilfer.
his second one, Dilfer. He's not on that tier, but surely he's in that next tier, right? He's not in the F tier, but he's surely in the D tier, right? Of Super Bowl winning quarterbacks.
How about the Flacco tier? Even though Flacco was good in that playoff
Flacco's
run.
better. No, Flacco's better than
Flacco was
Hurts. No
great in
doubt
that
about it.
playoff run.
Flacco to me is like C or B because of how good he was in the playoffs. It was
So good
historic.
in that
There's not
playoff
a
run.
better really playoff run we've ever had. And even when Flacco didn't win in the playoffs, he was still really good for
Yeah,
all
he
of
was
those
a good
playoff
playoff.
games.
No, he was a good playoff quarterback.
So
Even
no,
though
I
the
can't.
Washington,
No,
you know,
I don't have a good answer for who the D tier is. I'm thinking I don't have it right now.
Was Nick Foles the D tier for that playoff run he went on? But he had, I mean, he came in week 16 for Carson Wentz. I mean, that's again the Eagles, so we can draw comparisons with them. But
I feel
it was
like Foles almost is a DQ. It's almost an impossible
You
comparison
can't
to
grade him
anything.
the full season. Yeah, that's a
No,
tough one. But
no.
no, I mean, we were just so used to the Manning, Brady, Mahomes thing. So I mean, it would be. I mean, look, he's on the short list of. But that goes to the
Maybe
credit of the
like
Eagles.
Elway,
Yeah.
where
Okay.
Elway
Not,
wasn't
yeah.
really Elway anymore, and he was kind of running on fumes, but he had some moments. He has the helicopter, like things people remember, But if you go back and actually watch it, not that impressive. I think that's the closest we have, really. It's a bad tier. It's not like the absolute worst, but it's not too far off either.
That's not a bad comparison. Again, if Philadelphia is capable of winning with him, they're an aggressive franchise. Would they make a aggressive move? Same draft class. They're like, hey,
No, you want to know why? Because if you can win with Jalen Hurts, the answer is not to roll the dice with a Joe Burrow. It's to roll the dice with like a Jordan Love, if you
yeah,
will. Someone
slightly
who
better
you at
than
least know will stay healthy, but has
exactly.
more high end talent. I think that's
No,
who
I agree.
you roll the dice with. Mike, before we wrap this up, give me a minute on the NFC South.
This division, I'm glad we have it back. It's back.
We're back. I said it
Thank
to you. You
God.
loved it.
This
I
was
was
incredible.
worried that this was going to be the Tampa Invitational the next few years,
Every
but
single year, it's been that for the 4 years.
Tampa has fallen off dramatically. Carolina looked like they're onto something, and then as soon as you start to think they're not as bad as we've harped on all year long, they lose to the Saints.
Carolina this year has beaten Green Bay in Lambeau. They've beaten the Rams at home in a rainstorm. They have also in that same year been swept by the Saints. Shuck got them today. Rattler got him a month ago. The NFC South is so back, baby. Falcons walk off the Bucks on a game-winning field goal. In the same week, the Saints walk off the Panthers on a game-winning field goal. The bottom of the NFC South beating the top of the NFC South is just a treat like no other. It's every year with this. I mean, again, Bucks have in the past few years run with the division in the end, but it has been close races. They've been 9-8, 9-8, 10-7. The last year with Brady, they were 8-9 and won the division. So the NFC South is post 2020 when Breeze retired and they famously got two teams in 2020 when Tom beat Drew in the divisional round. 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and now 2025. That'll be 5 years in a row of this division being 9 wins when you get in the playoffs. This is going to be, heck, 8 wins might get. I know Carolina plays Tampa twice these last 3 weeks.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I was looking at the schedule right now. So they haven't played Tampa at all. So both are 7-7. The division's on the line within these next few weeks. It really depends on how those games turn out.
Here's a subplot real quick. Seattle plays Carolina. So for example, these last 3 weeks, it's Carolina Tampa play in 16 and 18. And the sandwich game in week 17 does not matter to either team at all. So Tampa Bay can rest start. We had this happen a couple years ago where I believe Vrabel benched everybody for Tennessee against Dallas because they knew the week 18 game, Josh Dobbs in Jacksonville was one
Mike,
that
that could be wrong if Tampa were to win both of those games and
They win next week,
Carolina
they're in,
were
yes.
to lose both. So that's where that could get interesting. But it's one of these things where Tampa has to be feeling like they've had a few mulligans this year because the first mulligan, pretty much everyone on the roster gets hurt. Second mulligan, they're losing disaster games to New Orleans and Atlanta, the teams at the bottom of their division.
At home, back-to-back weeks.
Yes, now Carolina loses, so then you get a third mulligan. How many mulligans can Tampa afford?
I think they have 4.
Your guy, I hate to say it, Baker, he's been a little shaky the last few weeks. It hasn't been, I'm not going to say it's his fault. I would never go that far. But he hasn't been the Baker that was in the MVP conversations earlier in the year either.
No, it's 2021. It's 2021 all over again. Cleveland was in first place in the AFC North. He gets injured making a tackle. This year against the Rams, he gets injured, I believe, just on a run. But he tries to play through it, battles through it. Cleveland finishes the year 8-9. Cincinnati wins the division at 10-7 and makes the Super Bowl. But Cleveland had a really good roster that year, and unfortunately, that he played through that left shoulder injury. He's playing through another one. He's not his sharpest right now. Tampa Bay is still somehow in it because the division is so terrible and they're getting their weapons back. But I don't have any faith in the Buccaneers doing anything this year. Whether they make the playoffs or not, I don't think it really matters. We can cut it. We can honestly cut it pretty simple here. Bucks and Panthers play twice in the next 3 weeks. Whoever wins twice, like if you're the Panthers, you're saying, hey, if we just beat them twice, we're in. If you're the Bucks, you say, hey, if we just beat them once and beat the Dolphins, we're in. Or just beat them twice. It doesn't matter. Like if you just win 2 of the 3, you're in. So with 3 games to go, both of them can be saying, hey, if we win 2 games in the next 3 games, we're in the playoffs at 9-8, and we will get our teeth kicked in by Seattle.
Does Bowles keep his job if he makes the playoffs? You think he's gone regardless?
what would that 9-8 wild card loss do for you? Why would that? What would that do for you, really? Compared to losing to Carolina in
I
Week 18?
think they're a franchise cognizant of the fact that it's kind of like the Miami Marlins in a way. Their history is kind of tied around two championships, and the rest of the entire history of the franchise is kind of marred a little bit with incompetence. And at least Tampa had a little bit longer of a run in the early 2000s and a little bit with Brady, obviously. But beyond those points, they've never really been able to sustain success. This is kind of an outlier if you look at it.
5 years in a row, division champions.
Yeah, Baker's been able to come in and kind of right the ship that Brady had. I think there's going to be a sector of the franchise where they want to be complacent because they finally have something good going. They finally have had sustained success. Who cares if it's 9-8 with the wild card loss? They haven't had that literally ever in the entire history of this franchise, which dates back to the 70s, right? So there's going to be that end of it. The other end is you just had Dave Canales and Liam Cohen on staff. They're now gone, one of which is in your division, who could beat you, by the way, to knock you out of playoff contention, and Dave Canales. That's not good. So you just had these two guys you could have elevated on your roster. You didn't. Is that concerning to you? And then the third boat where you don't really care about any of that. You just want to move on. Bowles, he did a great job for what he was assigned to do. You just simply need a different leader in the room.
I think that the reason why right now it's getting very loud in Tampa Bay. The reason why I think that there's a chance that they can fire him is because right now, seeing what Liam Cohen is doing in first place in year one, seeing what Dave Canales is doing tied for first place in year two in Carolina, there's some sort of now urgency. It's like, okay, should we get the offensive guy in the room that's quick turnaround with the other teams? Carolina and Jacksonville have been losing franchises for as long as we've been watching football. Jacksonville and Carolina have been losing franchises. Now they could both host playoff games in year one with former Bucks OCs and former Bucks assistants. I think it's getting very loud with the Bucks fan base now. The boos in Thursday night, the way that game ended with 3rd and 28. Yeah. 3rd and 28 can
the slamming the helmet from Evans, like
Mike
it
Evans
was dramatic.
Off the field before the kick was even good and saying it's 3rd and 28, guys. I mean, are we serious? And it's not looking good, whether it's players or coaches. But I think if it gets to a point now where they get blown off the field either in a playoff game or they lose to Carolina, for God's sakes, it would be very, very. It's already loud now, losing to Atlanta and New Orleans back to back at home. If you don't finish the year out, sweeping Carolina, and at least looking like you're in a playoff game against Seattle or whoever you play in the first round, I think it's going to get very loud. It's like, okay, what are we doing here with Todd Bowles? Are we going to just be complacent and wait for Carolina to eventually pass us up in the division? Or are we going to keep running this thing back and trying to win? Like, we have to eventually. The Glazers are a smart family. Jason Light's a smart GM. They've shown some competency here in the 2020s. I think they would eventually want to be like, hey, can we upgrade here? Is Todd Bowles really just he's a great coordinator. But if we want to get to where we want to get to as a franchise, and we have a roster full of, there's some good players here. I mean, right now the players aren't playing well.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think Evans has maybe one more year left in him. I think he's clearly at the end. Godwin, not too far behind him. But even with those guys out of the equation, you still have Ibuka. You still have McMillan, who I really like. Tez Johnson's been really fun in spot duty this year.
They drafted well recently. They have drafted well.
You have Bucky in the backfield. You have enough on offense. If you brought in a creative mind, use that Evans and Godwin money, you get a different type of wide receiver one. You don't need the overkill. You don't need all of these guys. You can use it other places, right? Yeah, I think they have something there, right? Especially if you're able to get another pass rusher. That's been a point of contention this year.
It's been Yaya Diaby and Hassan Reddick, and they've really been without Kalijah Cansey. When he got injured in week 2, they've really missed him as far as getting third down stops. He was so big for them last year. Winfield was injured a lot last year. He's been, so they've drafted well. They have the players, but it's getting very loud in Tampa Bay. If you can't just keep winning the South, which is famously the worst division of football for 4 years in a row now. You can't just keep winning the South and losing in the wild card. That eventually will get. It's like the Tomlin syndrome, where you get to 9 wins and you lose in the first round every single year. Pittsburgh apparently is okay with that now. The Rooneys love Tomlin, and that is kind of their shtick. The Bucks, I would hope that eventually they'll look in the mirror and say, hey, look at what's going on around the league. Do we want to kind of rest on our laurels here and keep kind of going down this exact same path of Todd Bowles having awful middle of the seasons and then kind of lucking into a bunch of mulligans that you just laid out for us right there with this division being kind of wonky?
So today, in no real other way to say this, the fates of Kansas City, Green Bay, the rest of the AFC contenders, the rest of the NFC contenders,
the whole AFC West,
Cincinnati, and Indianapolis changed. Any final words on this dramatic Sunday that really, there's no other way to put it, changed the future of the NFL.
Detroit is lucky that so many things happened today that they got buried and didn't make the big
We
run
barely
to them.
talked about them,
I
but
know.
Detroit
They're gonna miss the
probably
playoffs.
going to miss the playoffs.
Unbelievable. A year after winning 15 games and being the favorite to win the Super Bowl, they're gonna miss the playoffs. They're 8-6 now. They're very fortunate that this day we had so much to cover. We didn't even talk about Detroit much, but
Two games out of the playoff picture.
I know they're gonna need to win these last 3 games and hope that the Bears or the Niners, somebody just falls apart. Green Bay maybe doesn't win another game without Micah Parsons. It's gonna be really tough to get back in this thing. But I feel bad for Detroit. It's another team that watched their offensive coordinator walk out the building and now is in first place. We talked about it with the Bucks, who we see Liam Cohen's in
Could you
first place.
believe? I feel like we were two of the only people that said that would matter. I feel like so many people acted like it was business as usual, and we said on that superlatives pod to open up, we were like, I don't know about that. That seems like a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, they panicked about a month ago when Dan Campbell says, "You know what? I'm going to take care. I'm going to take hold of the play calling duties now." That's a little concerning. I mean, sorry, your offensive coordinator just walked out the door, and like 9 games into the season, Dan Campbell's taking over play calling duties. It's a little. I don't know. I don't love the way this is going. For again, my Bucks watched Dave Canales and Liam Cohen consecutively walk out the door, and now they're leading their other teams into possibly first place. And Ben Johnson, same thing, walked out the door in Detroit and is in first place. No disrespect to Aaron Glenn, but it's not an offensive guy, and you see what happens with the Jets right now. But offensive minds, if you lose your offensive coordinator, we saw Atlanta in 28-3 lose Shanahan, walk out the door. That offense was never the same after that Super Bowl run. It matters. Losing your OC does matter. I think we both agree with that. It's kind of important.
Was Campbell a Ben Johnson merchant? I'm sure the pieces will be
That's
ready
gonna
in
be
Detroit when they miss the playoffs.
It's the playoffs. That'll be talked about pretty. Yeah, it's not great right now. It's not great.
No. Anything else, though, outside of Detroit? Just, again, they kind of escaped our wrath today, but I'm sure they will be in our crossfires soon enough here.
No, I can't wait to see Philip Rivers again.
It was so bad, it was good. It was one of those things where I couldn't
Car crash.
keep my eyes off it.
Car
Yeah,
crash.
it
You
was.
have to watch
It
it.
was more than a car crash. It was like
Train wreck.
It was kind of like a blizzard. It was just beautiful disaster all at once. You just couldn't stop watching it. I kept finding myself, I had a lot of fantasy implications going on, so I was bouncing around like red zone, watching the actual games, all that stuff, and constantly checking my phone, making sure I was going to win, which I did. Um, yeah, I just every once in a while I'd be like, oh, that's Philip. I know because he's 400 pounds out there. He looks like a sumo wrestler. I know that's him. There he is. He is stepping up into the pocket, and it looks like his feet are clanking against each other. And then he throws. Oh, that looks like I threw the ball. Oh, okay. All
It took
right.
a while to get there, but the throws were,
Yeah. Well, Mike, we have a really busy week, so I don't know when we'll be back in the airwaves for sports. I know we will be here, regardless of what we talk about. Probably basketball, I have to imagine, since we just covered the whole NFL. But we will be on the sports circuit soon enough, and I'm sure we're going to make some content for socials as well. But big week because Wednesday is the finale of Survivor 49. We will be here dissecting all of that. The Survivor coverage has been nonstop. We've covered the entire season, and the views and clicks and listens and all that fun stuff has gone up dramatically. We have nearly 10,000 views on our last TikTok thanks to Survivor, so really awesome stuff there. But if you're seeing this video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Check out our other stuff. Mike Testa, Xavier Aguiar, we are the Gurus. We had a great time today, and we'll have a lot of content for you soon. So we will see you next time. Peace.